have a packed agenda full of amazing speakers, including people talking from Tameside and Glossop, Integrated Care Foundation Trust, about how they've done some work on finance education from the Sussex Community Foundation Trust, lots about budgets from Papworth, and a few case studies from various members of the FACE network. The FACE network, the Finance and Clinicians Network, Clinical Educators Network, was set up probably 5 or 6 years ago as a way of encouraging interaction between finance professionals and non-profit finance professionals, particularly in this context, clinicians. And it's understanding how we work together to kind of deliver the best patient care that we can within the financial kind of remit and limitations that there is. What we have found is that the FACE network has grown massively, particularly over the last year or two. It's great to see how engaged people are, particularly in the finance side, about interacting with their clinical colleagues and helping them understand, because we don't understand as clinicians the ins and outs and some of the intricacies of the financial world, particularly as it changes so quickly and so often. What we find is we're wedded to things from probably 5-10 years ago, and we still think that's current, because that's how things work in our clinical worlds. Whereas obviously in the financial world, things change, times monthly, if not quarterly and yearly. So one of the things that is going to be increasingly important is this interaction, because we know that the finances are going to get increasingly tough. Everybody I've spoken to, both clinical and financial, have said this is one of the toughest environments they've had to operate in from a financial point of view. And we as clinicians are going to have to change how we work and how we operate within these tough times. And we need all the help we can get to be able to make sure we can deliver safe patient care. And we might mean changing our processes, changing how we operate, because of the financial limitations that we have. And so your role is increasingly important to try and help us navigate that pathways of what we can and what we can't do. And it's not about that historically the finance saying no. That's not what we want. We want it to be a collaborative experience where you help us try and work out, again, how to navigate this area. Now, I've got 15 minutes allocated to this, and I'm not going to take 10-15 minutes to talk about this, because otherwise it's going to be saying a lot of the same things. And what I'd probably be more useful is taking stuff at the end of the questions and stuff at the end of the talks. But what I will go through is some housekeeping rules and points. So please, when you are speaking or asking a question, please turn your camera on, so that if anybody does have any hearing impairments, we can see that. If you have any questions about the sessions, please either raise your hand or put your question in the chat box. Try and keep your microphone on mute throughout the event. And finally, the session is being recorded and will be made available on YouTube over the next couple of weeks. So where we have permission from speakers. So if you do miss any bits of it, or you have to leave for various bits, you can try and watch it back, because I'm sure they'll be brilliant to watch back later. So first up, we have working together towards financial recovery. So we've got Matt Longbottom, project and development accountant, and Lee Butler, who are from Tameside, Glossop Integrated Care NHS Foundation Trust. And we're going to hear about how Matt and Lee at Tameside and Glossop have engaged clinicians and non-finance managers to support the delivery of financial targets. I hope they are here.
Good morning. Yes, we're here.
Great. Over to you. Thank you very much for coming along.
Thanks very much. So yeah, good morning, everyone. My name's Matt Longbottom. I'm the finance project and development accountant for Tameside. And I'm going to introduce my colleague Lee as well, who's also on the call.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Yes, I'm Lee Butler, Finance Business Partner for Income and Costing.
Okay, right. I'm just going to share my screen so we can get the slideshow going. Right, hold on a sec. Okie doke. Right, so hopefully everyone can see that. So we're going to be talking today about what we've done for our colleagues across the organisation at Tameside in terms of our training and development for clinicians as well as operational non-finance managers. Slides not moving on. Right. Okay, so the focus for our session, we're going to cover three sort of topics that we've cherry-picked for you today that I think kind of align best to what the FACE conference is all about. So we're going to talk to you about our budget holder training and assessment programme. So that covers everyone from clinical roles right the way through to anyone that's got any sort of end user interface with our finance and procurement system. We're going to talk to you today about our CESA training programme. So any newly qualified consultants that have just come on board, we've dedicated a specific training programme to meet their needs so that they're sort of prepped for their roles as senior clinical leaders of the future. And it gives us that sort of opportunity to sort of embed what we feel is going to be most beneficial to them within their roles as clinicians, but also to the wider organisation in terms of delivery of productivity and finance targets. And then we're going to talk to you about implied productivity and the work that we've done around that kind of links in nicely to the CESA training in terms of the extra detail that we've gone to really understand productivity, efficiency, and other sort of opportunities that we can exploit. So where did we start from? So if we rewind back to the COVID pandemic, as all of your organisation will have had to do during that difficult time, we actually had to make sure that, training had to take a back seat. So since then, we got together as a department to relaunch what sort of training we are going to offer our organisation to make sure that we're sort of back on track with that. So it's a complete reset, really. So how do we do that? Well, we formed what we call 8 working groups, and training and development is one of those working groups. And essentially, we divvied out and split out our department into these different working groups to task them on various aspects that are going to be help us to sort of deliver our own objectives as a department and ensure that the organisation meets those as well. So training and development was something that was pivotal within that. We also used feedback from our annual budget holder perception survey to try and capture the thoughts and feelings of those budget holders in terms of what training did they feel they needed, were they comfortable in things like systems access, and so on. So the training group got together. We decided that there were sort of 3 key elements that kind of fed out from that. One being general finance training, which we'll talk about in detail, that would cover all aspects of the organisation in terms of employment hierarchy and job role. Something to target newly qualified consultants to make sure that they're starting off on the right track in terms of their financial knowledge and what they can do to help the organisation achieve those goals as well. And then also, what other information can we produce to try and help the sum total of those 2 efforts to make sure that we can actually deliver and really get underneath the skin of where potential gaps are and opportunities that we can exploit. So to start things off, so I'll talk to you about our finance, procurement and training and assessment program. So what is it? So the format of our program is essentially it's a bookable training program via my ESR. So people can log on through their usual routes, choose the session they want to book onto, and then select the date and make that booking. And what they do is they go through a 2-hour classroom-based training session, which is held face-to-face. I should have said actually at the start, Tameside is quite a small organisation. It's the smallest acute provider within Greater Manchester area. So this is kind of format that we've sort of shaped to fit the size of our organisation. So if you're later considering something similar within your own organisations, you might need to sort of tweak this somewhat. So they do a face-to-face classroom training session. We then share all the slides that we go through during that session. So they've got that as a point of reference in the future, so that if they have any queries, questions, then a lot of those can be answered from referring to that slide pack. Then they can book onto an online assessment, again through ESR. And the delegate then takes that assessment, and assuming they then pass, they get issued with a certificate to celebrate and recognise their achievement of completing that programme. We also then issue a feedback survey just to make sure that we're capturing those thoughts of those people that have gone through the programme, so that we can continually improve and review what we're delivering, just to make sure that it's relevant. So in terms of the training sessions, we hold roughly on average 1 per month, and we've set ourselves a limit of 20 delegates per session. Why did we choose that number? Well, one, we didn't want the session to be too overwhelming in terms of the size of the audience, and we just felt that 20 delegates was the right sort of number to ensure that there was proactive engagement during the sessions as well. We made these sessions bookable 6 months in advance. Bearing in mind a number of the delegates will be clinicians, we need to allow for things like rotas to be organised. So we wanted to give people as much notice as possible, so that then they could pick a session that best suits them. The training is very broad in scope. So it's kind of a mile wide, inch deep approach. So we wanted to cover lots and lots of different topics to give people a real kind of intro and into finance, and just to ensure that we captured everything really. We deliver our training through a pool of finance and procurement staff. So these range from finance business partners through to assistant finance business partners. And we thought that a pool of staff that we kind of rotate through is the fairest way to deliver that training, and also gives everyone an opportunity to sort of showcase their own presentational skills, and it helps to promote development within our department as well. We also have monthly reports that are routinely shared by the workforce team. So these reports essentially tell us from a snapshot who is whereabouts each individual is on that training program pathway. So how many people have attended, who registered for attendance and didn't show, who's passed the assessment, who's not taken the assessment, and so on, just so that we've got a complete overview at any one point in time over the whole program. The last point on this slide, so training program marked as essential to role within ESR by position number. So what this means is we wanted this program to be almost mandatory for people to attend. So we had to go through a governance process, which I'll go in detail further on in the presentation. But essentially, we wanted to give our trust board assurance that those people that we've identified as having roles that require this type of training, that actually they've not only attended, but they've understood the material, passed the assessment, and it just gives that confidence to the execs and senior leaders within our organisation, that everyone's got that level of financial and procurement acumen within the organisation. So these are just some of the examples of the topics that we cover within the training. So as you can see, it really is very varied. So we cover things like budget statements. So we have quite an interactive session on that, where we provide people with example statements, and then we have a discussion on what types of issues there might be going on that we need to investigate, and just to get that sort of proactivity and engagement within the classroom as well. But we also cover more high-level stuff, like what our governance structure looks like, which are the key finance committees within our organisation, what do they do, what approval rights they have and don't have, as well as just a high-level view on how to pull together a business case, the role of the budget holder in all of this, what their responsibilities are, what our responsibilities are as a finance function, and also things like forecasting, and emphasising that forecasts aren't something that the finance team are responsible for doing. It's putting the onus back on them to make sure that they have an active role and are fully engaged within that forecast process. And there are a host of other things that we cover, as you can see from that slide. So how do we set the programme up? Well, I would say approximately end to end, start to finish, it probably took around 9 months for us to do that. So the points below are kind of those that we did in chronological order. So first port call, we needed to identify who those end users were that we're targeting for this programme. So we had to do, this was a whole department effort. So each division had to analyse which roles within their division required this training, from a budget holder perspective, but also those that raise requisitions, approve orders, and so on. So real sort of end user focus on this. We then had to take a paper through our various governance channels at the trust. Because this was quite pioneering for us, we were asking essentially that all the roles that we've identified to mark it down on our ESR training requirement as essential to roles. So it's a different approach locally for us. So we had to take it through governance to make sure that senior execs within the organisation were approving of this approach, which thankfully they did. We also had to obviously create a slide deck. So what topics were we going to cover within this session? How were we going to target the range of topics in the best way, knowing that we've got 2 hours to cover all these things, and we wanted to make sure that people's time that they're giving up out of their day, because 2 hours might not seem a lot, but it can be, particularly in times of pressure. So how do we make sure that it was value for their time as well? We also needed to decide who was actually delivering the training. So we went through an exercise of volunteering, and in some cases, maybe mildly coercing people into it just to help us out. We also had to then design appropriate questions for the assessment part, which we've designed a 15-question assessment, all of which are multiple choice. And in much in the same way as you do for your national mandatory training, we ask that people achieve a pass mark of 80% or higher to get their pass and their certificate. We also worked with our educational team to make sure the course and assessment was actually bookable on ESR. Again, this was quite new for them, so they had to really understand how to use ESR in that way, so that we could set that assessment programme up. And again, work with workforce colleagues to make sure that that end report that I was talking about on the previous slide gave us all the detail we needed to identify where people were on that sort of training pathway and who's yet to sort of initiate themselves on that programme, so that then we can feed that information back through the divisional management team meetings and highlight it at that level to make sure that everyone's kind of pushed to come on and join that program. So in terms of feedback, it has been recognised at the very most senior levels within our organisation. So it has had a real, genuine impact. As you can see, we've had feedback from our chair of the Finance and Performance Committee, David Curtis. He's really seen the impacts of this programme at his level. And likewise, Andrea Bennett, who's the chair of our Audit Committee. But also the delegates themselves. So they've genuinely felt the positive impact of this programme to them. And that's the bit that really counts, because it makes us feel that our time hasn't gone wasted and their time neither. So they've really, really genuinely recognised the benefits of this programme. I mean, just to finish off in regards to this particular topic, is it a perfect programme? I'd say no, nothing's perfect, which is why we have that feedback survey that we issue after everyone's completed the programme, just to make sure that we're keeping it fresh and making sure it's ticking the boxes from their perspective, and just to make sure it's just value adding as possible, really. Going forwards, what we want to do is make this training programme almost one item from a menu of options that people can choose to help them in their particular roles when it comes to a training offer. So we're going to be offering more deep dive sort of sessions and things like PLIX, capital, and a number of other topics as well as providing online training, pre-recorded training videos from an external facing SharePoint page. So this is kind of just one a piece of the jigsaw, I guess, in that process. So I think that kind of summarises our budget holder training and assessment programme. Obviously happy to answer questions at the end of our session, but what I'm going to do now is just hand over to Lee, who's going to talk to you about our CSER training programme and our work efforts around implied productivity.
Thanks, Matt. You all right just keeping the slides on screen for me, Matt, please?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
all right, cheers. Yeah, I've got a couple of slides on implied productivity, and then I'll talk a bit about the finance training offer that we do to our senior clinical leaders as part of their CSER programme. So implied productivity. So if I think back to when this kind of first, I think we got our first productivity pack that came out from Greater Manchester ICB. I think it was during 22-23, sort of the second half of the year, 22-23. So one of the first things that we wanted to do with that when that pack landed was kind of what is this implied productivity metric that has landed? Do we understand what it's telling us? Do we understand what it's calculated? What's included? What's excluded? So there's a bit of diagnostic and homework piece that we did initially to understand the metric. Once we did that and we were comfortable with what the metric was telling us and how it was calculated, we was then wanted to get on the front foot with that. And then, because obviously it's an organizational metric, and sometimes the difficulty with that is sometimes it can become a little bit of a hard sell when you come to go out to services and talk how that metric relates to them, because more often than not they want to see tangible data that kind of relates to their service. So once we were comfortable with the calculation and we knew how to apply it, we then went on with a process of rolling it out and calculating it at specialty level, because we thought that was going to be important for the organisation to understand, and that was going to be equally important to get people's buy-in to the metric and help sort of shape some of that focus. There's probably a bit there worth noting. Obviously, the implied productivity calculation, as part of the cost, it looks to your PFR returns. So providers will need some way of carving up their cost ledger or cost at specialty level. So some people might have that if they've carried on with sort of service line sort of methodologies and approach. We had something that where we could carve up our sort of trial balance and ledger at specialty level. So we was able to continue to do that. It's probably worth noting as well at this point now, there are some services that are sort of typically non-activity generating. So, albeit, you know, kind of your sort of service departments. And so what we did at that point, we didn't want to do almost a fully absorbed approach, because what we didn't do, if we were kind of thinking a few steps ahead in terms of when we go out to specialties, what we didn't want was get a conversation about overheads and say, oh, well, actually, I only look particularly bad from implied productivity years because you give me a chunk of overheads that I don't particularly agree with. So what we calculated was more of a raw productivity score to say, actually, well, here's the activity that delivering at specialty level, and here's what it's costing to sort of run that service. So we give them a kind of a raw productivity score, which then helps us with that evidence base of when we're pitching that to specialties. We then developed sort of the quarterly reporting. So we've probably been doing that now during 23, 24 and 24, 25. So past couple of financial years, we've been rolling out that quarterly reporting. And that's helped to gain that traction and momentum for the organisation and keep people sort of talking about implied productivity and keeping that focus and spotlight on it. We then, alongside that, we did a lot of educational sessions. So that would, you know, that they were done via sort of lunchtime learning sessions. They were done sort of via ad hoc requests, but we were pitching that to other finance colleagues. So finance business partners play a key role in some of this as well, in getting some of the messages out there. We delivered the training through to various groups, including execs. We went to various divisional meetings and where this was kind of where we put sort of this training piece was offered, so we get people to understand the metric and what it was telling them. We've now moved on to sort of some developments where we've created a Power BI dashboard. So the idea of that is then some of the quarterly reporting that I've talked about there is that it almost becomes a bit of a self-serve tool that we can update this more routinely, and then services can go in and look at the Power BI dashboard to see how they're doing in terms of implied productivity. What we do as well is we do sort of monitor trends over time as well. So we will look at sort of on a quarterly basis whether that implied productivity at a service level is improving or it's deteriorating. So we do keep a track of what our productivity metric is doing over time. And then some people probably on the call know that now there's a new methodology that's been released that sits in model health system. So we're not complete full circle, but we're kind of at a stage where we're kind of now understanding what the new calculation is doing, and there's little bits that have been added to that. These are good additions, I would say, because there was kind of a few pitfalls in terms of the old methodology. Now that the key changes, there's more sort of care settings, appointed delivery included, and it's run at HRG level, which will allow it to include sort of your kind of complexities and case mix as part of that calculation. So move on to the next slide, please, Mark. So how have we raised awareness of implied productivity in the organisation? So certainly the metric itself sits in model health system. So one of the things that we did, as well as kind of engaging with people in organizations around implied productivity, we almost did a bit of a relaunch of model health system. So we said it was almost a bit of a two-pronged attack in terms of, well, let's get people logging into model health system. And it's probably fair to say, and most providers are probably in a similar position coming out of the pandemic, model health system usage had probably took a bit of a nosedive. So we made a conscious effort to sort of bring that back to where it was sort of pre-COVID and get people logging into the system and kind of owning the data in the system there. We did a bit that was done by a combination of kind of monthly newsletters and bulletins. We also model health ambassadors within your organization will have access to usage reports. So we did a bit of a league table, not to name and shame people, but once people kind of there's a bit of a table where it shows a list of users and it says the date of the last logged in. So there's a bit there where you don't want to be kind of one of them users that's not logged in for 90 days, for instance. So it does kind of create a bit of competition in terms of people getting into the system and having a look. And that's what we want. We want people to go in, owning the data, because we kind of wanted to address some, we picked up probably comments previously around model health system, and it might be that you hear little snippets in terms of the data is not quite right with the model health system, but that's all within our gift to put right. A lot of the data that's submitted in model health systems comes from us, the provider. So if there's something not quite right there, let's have a conversation about it and let's put things right. The activity monitoring group. So this was a group that we re-established, and this has been quite key for us as an organisation to sort of maintain that momentum on employee productivity. So within that group, you've got finance colleagues, you've got corporate information, you've got BI, and you've got coding team on there as well. So that gives us a platform and a forum where we can just have the key conversations and keep some of this implied productivity conversation going and traction. There's monthly reporting there, so we're now moving to a place where we're not we're moving from quarterly to monthly. We mentioned the Power BI dashboard on the previous slide. So there's been lots of engagement along the way. I think one of the key things there, one of the last points, is how we actually use this, and this is one of the real good results from all this work, is that we've used the implied productivity scores and metrics to inform our CIP plans. I think there's nothing more maybe frustrating for operational colleagues that if they feel that they've been allocated a CIP target that's not maybe evidence-based, or so this gave us that route in there to say, actually, so there'll be more specialties with a bigger opportunity to sort of improve their sort of productivity score, if you like. So, and that's how sort of CIPs were aligned. So, with specialties with more opportunity to improve, they would be allocated a slightly bigger CIP target. So that helps with certainly with the engagement around our CIP plan for 25-26. Next slide, please, Matt. So yeah, this is a bit around what we offer our senior clinical leaders as part of their CSER program. I think there was quite been a question earlier about what the CSER stands for. I might get this wrong, but I'm sure it's Certificate of Eligibility for Specialist Registration. I think it's an evidence-based program that clinicians can go on and then actually submit a series of sort of evidence and portfolio based, and then at the end of it, it allows them to sort of apply for consultant posts. You obtain entry to a specialist register, and then you can apply for consultant posts in the usual way. So these are some of the topics that we cover. We do cover quite a range of topics. You can see there some of the ones that are called out. So what we don't want to do is it's kind of it's very informal session. It's very interactive. It's lots of back and forth between us and the team leads. What we didn't want to do is create a session where we just talk at them for 2 hours, because I don't think that would be value added. But there are some there we do cover some topics and probably dive a little bit deeper into others. So we give them all the national context in terms of the financial regime, about how the contract's made up, how what things are blocking the contract, and kind of what things are variable. I think we've got a session coming up on Wednesday, so I think this will be the 4th time that we've done this offer, and so it's been. I think the first time we do it, it's probably fair to say it was probably a bit of an eye opener. So we do demystify a lot of the little finance snippets that they might have picked up along the way. I mentioned about the block element of the contract. So initially, we'd hear things but we didn't think it was as important to record all activity, given now we're on a block, and absolutely no, that's not the case. We need to record absolutely everything. So it helped demystify some of that key messages that they might have picked up or heard along the way. But then, like I say, we use this as a bit of a tool that we both get something out of it as well. So we kind of delve down into a bit around implied productivity, but we also show them model health system, and we show them Plix, because what we're trying to do there is, obviously, I think with a lot of the finance training offer is kind of consider your audience. So these are the bits that the senior clinicians, it kind of gets them excited. So we show them things, how powerful Plix data can be, and we show them a series of patient pathways and what typically some of our high patients have cost us along the way, and all the kind of mini sort of milestone steps that they've had along the way is picked up as part of that sort of patient bill, if you like. So that kind of almost whets their appetite, and that's our route in to build a sort of a relationship and rapport with some of our senior clinical leaders, because that's, we kind of keep that going over time, and because we bring them in kind of future work that where we need some of that senior clinician and medical input. So yeah, like I say, it's a very we keep it quite informal. It's a very interactive session. I've delivered it a few times now. I really enjoy delivering this session, and I think there's some of the snippets in terms of the feedback there. So yeah, this I would encourage all providers, if you've got something, I'm sure you've got some similar program that exists. So if to get this as a bolt on, I think is a really great addition. And I think that was probably it from me.
Yeah, that's the end.
Thank you. That was really good. Anybody have any questions so far? Yes, Debbie? Oh, who's first? Sorry, I can't work out who's first now. Yeah, Debbie?
Yeah, it's just a quick question. What was the uptake originally when you first started doing all the training sessions? Because I'm guessing that you had to change people's mindsets to get onto the training sessions and get them sort of their buy-in to try and change the way things were.
So yeah, I guess just going back to what I was saying earlier on in the presentation, so we had to really reset, didn't we, post-COVID, because people naturally had to focus on delivering healthcare, and that obviously had to take prominence in people's working lives. So we did have to do a reset on that, and we did socialize what we wanted to do through various communication channels. So we put it out through our chief exec newsletter, weekly newsletter, that these sessions were coming back on. Finance business partners also raised the importance and the need for doing this at their divisional management team meetings as well. So we did have a bit of a team effort to make sure that this message landed with people properly. And obviously before it went through that governance process of making it almost mandatory for people to attend. So it was, yeah, we had to message it carefully and appropriately. Whereas beforehand, it was kind of more ad hoc. And that's the bit that we wanted to change, because we felt that it being ad hoc, we weren't necessarily targeting and training everyone that needed training within the organization. So it had to be done in a more sort of formal approach. And I think we've achieved that. So hopefully that answers your question.
Nigel?
I think mine's just kind of how often do you kind of review the material and then do a revision of it? Because I think, as we all know, everything's moving fairly rapidly across the NHS. I mean, do you kind of do an annual review, 6 months, or just as in when it's needed?
Yeah, it's a very valid point, isn't it? The world changes so quickly in the NHS, doesn't it? So what we do is we ask each of our sort of department heads to review all the training material that we're producing alongside our training and development working group. So they're all focused on ensuring that the training material is up to date to reflect any changes in financial regime and national guidance, but also local changes. So if we have changes in systems, process, and so on, that people are informed appropriately of that. So again, it is a team effort. It's something that we do review periodically, but it's kind of the responsibility of the training and development working group that we've got in-house within our department. So they ensure that the training programs that we lead are relevant, refreshed, and also incorporate any feedback that we get from that survey that people, where people have attended, so that again, we're just catering for any gaps or potential gaps that people maybe have highlighted within that survey.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. Alistair?
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, thanks. It's a really interesting presentation. I just wanted to ask you, we run a sort of similar training, but it's not classed as essential to role. And I think you might have just touched on this in your answer to Debbie, but how did that kind of transform the uptake or the sort of your approach? Were you running this before it was classed as essential to role? And I'm just interested in how that kind of changed things.
Yes, again, good question. So we were running training sessions beforehand, but I think that was more kind of ad hoc and based on more triggered by a request from the individual or the team themselves. So what this did and what we discussed within our department was we needed to make sure that actually we're covering everyone. So by having it more formalized and making sure that those roles that we've identified by position number will ensure that our organisation has the assurance that everyone within those roles has received training, regardless of staff turnover and changes and that type of thing, because it's linked to position number rather than assignment number. So again, that sort of channeled its way up to board level to give them assurance that actually anyone within those roles identified has a certain level of financial knowledge. And that's something that we felt was really important to ensure happened, rather than that kind of more informal ad hoc training request approach that we had before. We wanted to make sure that it really kind of stepped up and drove that sort of value behind this more formal training program.
Thanks.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? So just one from me, I guess then. So with the CSER program, how did you find that? So a lot of these medics they've been working in the NHS for a while, but often did a lot of their training outside of the NHS. How did you find? Did you have to then do a lot of work to get their basic knowledge of how the systems work, or did you find that actually, because of your particular cohorts that you used, it's been okay? Because a lot of the people that are coming in on the CSER program have done extensive training in different health systems, and then sometimes find it difficult to kind of fully understand the intricacies of the NHS.
Lee, do you want to come in on that?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I was struggling to get off mute there. Yeah, so I think, I mean, when as part of that program, like I say, I think we're coming on the 4th time that we've done it now. I think the first time that we did it, it was quite yeah, like I say, I think I touched on it before, a bit of an eye. So I think there was a bit of a learning, and we probably just did some of our material and sort of some of the training that we do offer. I think if what we do is that there's once we get the feedback, we're always looking at that, and we'll always try and sort of influence it for the next session. So I think it's fair to say, yeah, there was maybe a little bit of learning initially, but I think now we're at a stage where we're kind of almost pitching it right in terms of the material offer. We haven't found, but we do, like Matt has touched on, we do obviously add on additional bolts on. So if there's anything that comes up as part of that session, we will actually take that away and think, actually, if there's a bit of a gap here, you know, we can then look at it as finance colleagues and say, actually, is this something, there's additional bolt on that we need to look at. But so far it's yeah, probably a bit of initial learning initially, but then it seems to have taken off pretty well.
Brilliant. Sounds like an excellent thing, and it's something that we've got, you know, I'm sure other places want to replicate. Great. Well, thank you for, well, if there's no other questions, I'll give it another minute or so, but no, thank you very much for your great insights into your programs. I have a feeling you'll get a few emails over the next few days and weeks asking for people to asking for advice and to try and replicate it. Brilliant. I will move on if nobody else seems to have got any more questions. So again, thank you. So next up we have a winner of a Finance Educator Award, Tim Blatt, who's Assistant Director of Finance and Financial Management at the Sussex Community NHS Foundation Trust. And he's going to be talking about what it means to be a finance educator, and he'll be reflecting on the work that led to him receiving that Educator Award. If Tim is, I think I've seen his name on there.
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you. Okay, that's thanks for that nice introduction. Morning, everyone. Really good presentation there from Matt and Lee, and probably a theme of today is that a lot of the presentations, there's a lot of overlap, and I'm going to be telling you a little bit about our experience here at Sussex Community. So Sussex, I'm the Assistant Director of Finance here at Sussex Community NHS Trust. We cover the whole of Sussex, sort of ranging from Chichester to Crowborough, if you know the area. We're a sort of a fairly smallish trust, about 400 million trust. Myself, I've been in finance since the early 90s, so over 30 years now, in a range of roles in the southeast. One of my colleagues recently described me as a seasoned NHS hack, which I thought was a bit flattering at the time. But when you say it out loud in front of 150 people, it sounds a bit odd. Anyway, I'm just going to quickly share my screen, if that's okay. Hopefully you can see that. So what I'm going to talk about is what it means to be a finance educator. And what I was going to speak through was why I wanted to become a face. Why someone who's been in the NHS 30 years wanted to become a face. Our approach to training at Sussex Community here in Sussex, and talk a bit about the training resources that are available to support us, because I think hopefully you're all aware of the sort of things you can get that are available to help us, and there's sort of almost unlimited amount of resources available, and talk through the ones that we used. And then I was going to talk through a couple of slides on our reflections on what we felt worked well in our community trust, and what didn't work so well. We had some good feedback on things that didn't go so well as well. And then there'll be an opportunity for questions. So why did I want to become a face when this whole thing came about 7 or 8 years ago? Well, what is a face? Well, I think probably as we all know, we're a group of people committed to demystifying NHS finance and improving clinical value, and we do that by engaging with and educating clinicians of all sorts about what we do. And I think it's still the aim, or it certainly was at one point. The aim was to have at least one face in every NHS organisation, best place to champion the clinical engagement and financial training in the organisation. And I was very happy to volunteer for that in our organisation. And the reason I was happy to do it, because I think it really, for most of us, it really gives some recognition of what we're already doing. Those of us in sort of financial management accounts, we'll be doing this as our bread and butter, isn't it? Training clinicians, and it just puts a bit of a framework around around why we do it. Obviously, it was part of the FFF accreditation process. We were very pleased to get a level 3 accreditation process a few years ago, and we're actually going through a re-accreditation process now. But I've made no bones about it. The FFF process is we used it as a catalyst to get things done, and I think that's what I encourage other people to do. Obviously, it's not just about the award itself. It's about using it to implement best practice. As a face, it's an invaluable source of tips and information, and you also get access to a network of other faces and training resources, which I'll come on to talk a bit about later. And there's also an opportunity to share with colleagues what we're doing and to learn from them, and generally to pick up all good tips. I've been scribbling away when Matt and Lee were talking all the ideas that we're going to. I'm going to crib shamelessly, to be honest. So I'll talk a little bit now about our story here at Sussex Community NHS Trust. Very similar to all organisations in the NHS, I'm sure. But I'll just run through sort of what happened with us. We're a reasonably well run, or we felt we were a reasonably well run management accounting team. But we had an internal audit survey taken off to sort of check where we thought we were. And there basically were 4 questions we asked people. We asked them, did they think the finance staff were supportive during the budget setting process? Now, pleasingly, about 88% of them agreed with that, and only a small amount, 12% or so, disagreed. So that's where we thought we were. Then we asked them, do they understand the way in which their budget for the current year was set, including assumptions about activity growth and inflation? And only 57% of people agreed with that. So that was something that we were a little bit surprised by, but it was a very, very useful bit of information. So there was plenty of work to be doing there. We asked them whether they received their budget statements in a timely manner, and 93% of people did. As they get sent out automatically, that wasn't a fantastic return, but we would expect that to be quite high. And our final question was about whether they had received any finance training, any budget training in the last 3 years. And actually the response to that was just 5% had received training. Now we felt that we were doing a lot of on the job training, face-to-face training anyway, but it was evident they didn't really regard that as proper training. So we felt there was a need to respond to that, and there was a recognition of the need for wider training in budget management and other areas of NHS finance. So what we produced was a program very similar to what Matt and Lee did earlier, described earlier, which is a combination of informal and formal training. We also, in partnership with that, we adopted the business partner approach that we previously just used in management accounting, and we extended that to the rest of finance, to contracts, to human resources, and to the performance team as well. I'll just pop up a slide on that, which I won't go through in massive detail. This was the business partner model we adopted, and I think probably the key bit there is the key skills in the middle there, which we actually put into people's jobs descriptions. So that the 4 sort of key skills, so we wanted them to assist, support, advise, and provide training. So that was the sort of core bit of their job. We wanted them to work collaboratively with services, providing insight and guidance. They had to have strong communication skills and be good at relationship building and networking. And they also had to maintain a strategic view, as well as supporting areas with operational issues. So it was a slight shift within our organisation from within certain teams to this business management, business partner approach. Quickly talk through what we covered in our formal training sessions. We actually went for a 3-hour session, quite with a big break in the middle, and we tried to cover everything, all aspects of finance, not just sort of the budget statements. So what we covered there was the NHS funding overall. We talked about our local contracting arrangements. Had a member from the contract team come along and do that. We had a member from the performance team talking about the performance requirements and talking about activity and all the information that they can pull together. Then probably that sort of the meat in the sandwich was the interpreting budget statements, where one of the management accounting teams would do that. So I missed out procurement processes there. So one of the procurement team would come along and talk about all their do's and don'ts and all the procurement rules and where they had to follow, and signpost to further training that they provide within procurement. Then I said the budget statement section. Then we talked a lot about capital, difference in capital and revenue, and a few cases there, a few examples there, and then how we could develop business cases as well. And then we turned on to talk about the service line reporting that we do, and more recently the PLIX costing systems that we've got, the patient level information systems. And then we wrapped it all up with a quiz on sort of rules and finance, governance and probity, and that session always goes down quite well when people are coming to the end of a long session. Just a little bit more detail on the interpreting budget statements session. The bits we cover there with budget holder responsibilities, some sort of real nitty-gritty stuff on coding, the different types of cost centers and so forth. Then we do quite a good bit on that we found goes down very well on the reasons you might be underspending and overspending. That's quite an interactive session we do, and it does tend to get people shouting out things and budget holders really interacting well with that session. And then of course what to do if you're underspending or what to do if you're overspending, and that's always seems to be very well received, that session in our feedback. Then we talk a bit about the budget setting process, as you'd expect, so describing the process from the very start in about September or so till the budgets are all signed off in March or later. And then probably the bit that is most well received is looking at the budget reports and how to interpret them. We do an exercise on that in a breakout room, which always goes down well, and a lot of interaction there. And then also a session on forecasting, where we ask people to forecast where a budget will be at the end of the year, based on month 6 budget, and you get some really quite interesting answers on that, but really quite informative. So what are the features of our formal training? We too made it mandatory for budget holders. I think we might look at what Matt and Lee were talking about there, back at Essential to Role and having it absolutely formalised in ESR. That sounded like a very good idea. We did do a combination of online and face-to-face. We've got a huge geographical area, and we did find that if a few of us senior people from the finance team go out there, it was really well received if we're going out to local venues. So whilst it was a lot of time to take in to get there and so forth, it really was a good thing to do, and went down very well. I said there it was both face-to-face and online. We used a wide range of presenters. I think these work better where you've got when no one talks for more than about 20 minutes at a time. So jumping around between speakers, and that we found that gets well received. And as I said before, we had plenty of audience interaction, plenty of worked examples, questions, and then when we're not face to face, we use the breakout room facility on Teams, and then have someone monitoring each of those breakout rooms, so to make sure the discussion was quite well facilitated. And then finally, of course, you have to have an opportunity for feedback. To hear, and we've done over 40 sessions, but the feedback's absolutely valuable, so we can tailor our training in response to that feedback. I just wanted to very briefly talk about, sort of in the context of the FACE network, talk about some of the training resources that are available, and this is the sort of slide I've used when I've been trying to encourage people to become FACEs. There are really tons and tons of information there. They're available on the FACE network. The presentations, the ready-made and available, and what I'd always encourage people to do bespoke slides and things. There's an awful lot there you can borrow, and a whole range of topics there, to budgets and planning, costing, payment systems, business cases, and so forth. So if you're not aware of those, I expect most of us are, but just tap into those because they're brilliant. There's a series of briefings written by clinicians and ready to access. They're really good as well, and of course loads of videos on the YouTube channel. So there really is an awful lot. If I had to say what my favourite resource is, and I'm a bit of an old school on this one, the HFMA Introductory Guide to Finance is still our Bible, and if you haven't read that or haven't got a copy of that, make sure you do. That's what I recommend to anyone new in finance, because that really does cover absolutely everything. I certainly plug that to anyone sort of starting up. So that's that. I just want to sort of finish my slot with a few reflections on our experience in Sussex community. Again, very similar themes to Matt and Lee earlier. It's really vital that you win the clinicians' engagement, and just telling them they've got to turn up to a 3-hour training session without properly engaging them and getting their confidence isn't really going to be very helpful. So I think the best way to do that is to try and describe to them how it's going to impact on their service. And actually, the bit that they most liked was the section on business cases. You sort of can see what's in it for them, and by developing business cases and developing their services, that is a key bit of it. I think we've also reflected that from our feedback that everyone learns differently, so you have to adapt different approaches, and whether it's going out and doing a small session for a small team in one area, or a more generic training that we do, the 3-hour session. You've just got to be happy to adapt those and take along different people. So some people really appreciate having the senior finance staff there. Others are sort of less bothered about that and want to meet their management accountant. So we're not proud about it. We'll just do whatever needs to happen. Yeah, there's a sort of balance there that I sort of touched on there between compulsion and incentives, or carrot and stick approaches. I think we do need. There is a risk that with management accounting generally, isn't there, that the really demanding budget holders get all the attention, and those who need it don't always get it. So I think that's why you need a balance of incentives and compulsion. With the training itself, you've got to keep it fresh. We always sort of try and bring in fresh topics. There's always something that's just happened in the NHS, so we try and factor that into the first few slides, so they're not just getting an off-the-shelf package. There's always plenty of change in the way things are commissioned, or so forth, or the latest financial position. We always bring that into our presentations, or saying where we are as a trust at a month 4, month 5 now. We see it very much as a two-way learning process. It's very much part of my development as sort of head of management accounts, that I go out and meet, every couple of months, go out and meet 20 or 30 budget holders in these meetings, because you find out what's going on. And similarly for the other people, the financial accounts colleagues and the contract colleagues, they very much get awful lot from it themselves. So it's not just a one way thing. And with that in mind, we also made all our finance staff attend it as well. So it's really good when you do a presentation to have 3 or 4 sort of friendly faces in the audience, and they can see, so they get exactly the same training that the budget holders get, and we found that works really well. Last few reflections on the training sessions that we do, is that it's really important to allow the attendees to speak, and it can be, particularly on Teams, it can be particularly challenging trying to get them to speak. So the icebreakers, we've tried a range of icebreakers over the years, are really important, and asking them, we find investing the time at the beginning of the session to ask them what they need to get out of the session, what their experience is as a budget holder. We found that works very well, and obviously we then try and tailor the presentations to in response to those things. We need to have quite a flexible approach. We do also do bespoke training for individuals, individual teams, and that can work quite well, particularly if you've got the relevant management accounting that they're there for those sessions. I think another thing probably to say is that when we do the presentations, I mean, we've done quite a few now, and so we know them off pat, but you've got to remember that everyone else is hearing it for the first time. So you don't, we sometimes make the mistake of assuming sort of too much knowledge from our budget holders, and they actually quite like the sort of going through the nitty gritty, you know, cost centers, coding a bit on costing and so forth. They actually quite appreciate that. We had some sort of rather, well, it sort of amused us a bit. We produced some really fantastic bubble charts we were very, very pleased about on patient level costing, and when we got the feedback, of course, no one mentions that, or they just say, well, actually, what was really useful was how to understand the budget and what was which way around brackets were. So I think it was a bit of a rude awakening to us that you can try and be a bit too clever with this, and you've really got to make sure that everyone's got the basics before you sort of try and do the clever stuff as well. Then obviously I've mentioned before about sort of being shameless about borrowing good ideas, and that's why I like these sort of sessions. So you can crib ideas from other people, and that's really excellent. And there's always something you can pick up. We do actually I'm also an FFF accreditator, and that's just great. We just go around and talk to people, and then scribble down all their ideas and pass them off as our own later on. We always back up the formal training with face-to-face training as well, so that's really important. That it isn't just a one-off that they go and forget about it. That we always meet up with them afterwards to check that they're doing what we've asked them to do. I think we talked about listening to feedback, so it's very, very important how much feedback we get. And I think probably the sort of quality that we as a team have got is persistence. It's been quite a long slog over the last 4 or 5 years, but particularly with all the circumstances of the NHS and COVID and so forth. And we've been really persistent with this budget holder training and forced people to do it and banged on about it. And it does get, it's very, very rewarding. You know, as you can tell from the speakers today, we're all really passionate about what we do, and we mustn't be afraid to share that passion and show it. So I think that's probably my takeaway from this presentation. Yeah, show your passion for this, because this is really, really important, and it's going to be increasingly challenging in the years ahead. So many thanks for listening to me.
Thank you. That was really good. That was a really interesting way of promoting really the FACE network and the FACE role. That was an excellent speak. Thank you, Tim. Any questions for Tim to start with? I mean, there's one in the chat already. So, is there preference for delivering training sessions either in person or virtually, especially in terms of the specific goals you're trying to achieve?
I think we've always found that the face-to-face ones are better, but the volume you can get virtually is much greater. So I think you've really got to go with what the clinicians will do. As I sort of alluded to earlier, there is quite a big geographical area we cover. So getting someone across from Crowborough or Chichester might take all day. So there's the practicality of it. But the ones we found the most rewarding and the ones we get the best feedback on are the ones face to face, where you can sort of look people in their eyes and see them face to face, and you get much more interaction there. So it's inevitable. It's quite challenging when you're doing it on Teams all the time.
Yeah, thank you. And I agree. I think it depends on, there's two bits to that. There's face to face is generally preferable, apart from the geography limitations, geographical, depending on how you work, but also it depends on how long your sessions are. If you've got a 3-hour study day, then it's definitely easier to face because it's just the logistics of everything. Whereas if you're doing an hour slot across, like, you know, lunchtime meeting type thing, then sometimes it can be easier just to do a Teams kind of educational session. So it depends on how you're delivering it, the structure of delivery as well. In my experience of doing this as well. Any other questions? No, nothing so far. So from Tim, so from my experience, I found that some sessions are always more popular, or, you know, seem to be more popular than others, but often clinicians don't know what they don't know, and the ones that generate the most conversation are not necessarily the most popular ones. They're the ones that they surprise them. Have you found that as well sometimes?
Yes, I mean, we do a bespoke session for some new consultants, and they're a really interesting group. We find that they're surprisingly, or we found, our experience is that they're surprisingly interested in the sort of core budgets, and we introduce a bit of competition, and it's surprisingly competitive when you start asking questions about budget and to analyze budgets. But then when you get into the patient level information that's out there, it is absolutely staggering what we can share and what we can show them, and then that ultimately is what really sort of gets them interested, and the sort of disparities between teams in productivity that it showed us. And I think we're probably, as a community trust, we're a little bit behind on some of these things, but so we're catching up. And our scope, we've got an enormous SIP program like everyone else has, and this is really got to be the source for that. And when you've got managers who sort of don't know where they're going to go for their 3%, 4%, 5% SIP next year, you show them some of this information that's really, really powerful, and that's the bit that really does float their boat.
Yeah, I think new consultants are a untapped resource. I think that we should be.
Another call and send me a message if I am free to catch up now. So
I think somebody's just going to mute them. So I think new consultants are a untapped resource. I think they are probably the first stage from a medical point of view where people actually have a true affiliation with an organisation. When they're rotating around as more junior doctors, they're rotating around, haven't really picked a place. But once they have picked a place and get their consultant job, that's when they're really, and they're still eager. They haven't been kind of worn down by the by the system. Us, yeah. And so yeah, and I've also found that, Plix is really an eye opener. Plix and coding tends to be the biggest eye openers for them. They always come in wanting to know about business cases, but the thing that kind of drives them is the Plix and coding, in terms of, oh my god, this is oh my goodness, this could come up with all kinds of avenues that they could explore and develop. The other thing I would say is that different, not just different specialities, but different professions within the clinical side have different roles. So you'll find the nursing and AHP kind of teams are much more into budget holder training and things like that, because they actually have much more control over the budgets than the medics do, whereas the medics are much more into service development processes and things like that. Debbie.
So with doing the training, you must have had a bigger reduction in time spent with management accountants or financial accountants moving stuff around into the right cost centres or the right coding.
Yes, I think it will work both ways, actually. That by getting the sort of well-trained budget holders, it did save time with those sort of things, but it also did prompt more work coming our way in terms of the questions they asked. But that's a really, really a good thing, though, Debbie. So if they if it prompts questions on how they can be more efficient and where they can make savings, that sort of thing we relish. And our biggest challenge as management accountants is to get full budget holder engagement, and we found this was a very positive thing that got people talking, and it also meant they knew a few more people in finance who they could ring up actually. So we were sort of, one of our payoffs at the end of our training is say, well, you now met 6 of us. Do feel free to call us at any time, and so we did raise our profile quite significantly as well. But yeah, no, it's gone down very well.
Yeah, it certainly sounds it. I mean, I've done a similar thing with my budget holders. I've done a training session on budget statements, and to see the confidence in the budget holders now to what they had 6 months, a year ago, and then it then exposes other things that you could see. Actually, I can see we need to do training on that, because then the questions, like you say, start coming.
Yeah, no, that sounds really good, Debbie. You've obviously gone. I mean, I think the feature of this is there's goodness knows how many organisations in the country are all doing the same thing, or trying to do train the budget holders, get them engaged, and sounds like you've done some really good stuff there in Kent, and long may it continue.
Thank you. I'll definitely be looking at both of the presentations to see what else there is out there for our area, without a doubt.
Yeah, no, there's plenty out there. It's probably if you were to just search for sort of budget holder training, you'll be absolutely deluged with stuff. It's picking the ones you want to use. It's your probably not a lack of information out there.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Zoe.
Thanks, Tim. So a question from Nigel saying in the chat saying, I'm hearing buy-in on the non-finance side is key, and both presentations have achieved this in their organisations. Do you have any ideas on how we can improve or enhance attendee buy-in, not just at the sessions, but with onward actions?
Well, I suppose the answer is that is what's in it for them, isn't it? It's how can you encourage people to do it. I've alluded to a few of those. I mean, for budget holders, it's sort of allowing them to come along and sort of see what opportunities they might have that we might be able to help them with. They see finance in a positive way rather than a negative way. I think the other bit to it, Nigel, is that the financial situation just necessitates this, unfortunately, doesn't it now? So I know it's been difficult for some time, but I can't really see how we can avoid huge SIP programs for the next 2 or 3 years. So it really does need everyone's buying into it, and I mean, we've had very, very good support from our execs as well on this. I think Matt and Lee mentioned that as well. You have to sort of get exec buy-in. It's not just a random email from someone in finance sending it around. It's getting the whole board involved in it. And if you're going to have a degree of compulsion, whether it's through the essential to roll or in other ways, you've really got to get the buy-in from the top down, from the operations management downwards. So I think probably a combination of things, trying to get my management accountants to be all nice to them, and then a bit of stick as well from their managers is the best way to do it. That's what we found. That's been our experience.
Yeah, I think in the current climate, as you said, I think that there is a necessity for this, and I think you'll probably find that people will want to, or they have to, engage, and understanding it is the only way that they can actually navigate the path that they're delivering their patient care, improving their services. So I think that whenever we put out clinicians training, or we've been inundated with kind of, it's more their availability and juggling their time in our schedules rather than actually a lack of desire. So at all levels within the clinical frame groups, so whether it's juniors or higher. Jolanta.
So at our trust, we came with idea to do lunch and learn. So the meetings are actually the budget holder meetings. The invitations for clinicians to join the sessions are from 12:30 to 1 o'clock, half an hour updates on finance. We do feedback from the budget holders, what they would like to be trained on, what is the topic. As you guys said, the most, I think, popular topic is the business cases and the plics. So that's what we do. It's the lunchtime. You can eat, you can drink, you can do whatever you want. It's basically eating information. So that's how we kind of found the resolution to find a time with the budget holders, because usually people have that time between 12:30, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock booked for lunch, and then they listen to finance. So some kind of, I don't know, opportunity for you guys to maybe.
I mean, we struggle to get lunches paid for, but if you can find somebody to cover, pay for some lunches, you will really get people to come along, because there's nothing more attractive to clinicians than free food. So even if it's a box of any sort of snacks, but they tend to come and like and come and eat all the food, and we'll take on the learning. We're struggling to cover our within our courses, even tea and coffee, let alone lunch in the current finances.
No, I mean the courses are online on Teams.
Oh, in Teams. Oh, I see. Okay.
Everybody's got it online.
But it is really
on
attractive.
NHS, it's not possible to get the lunch. No.
Yeah.
But yeah, on Teams, is the sessions half an hour, depends on the topic. So yeah. Thank you.
So thank you. So another question is about we've got and to a point where budget holders understand the numbers, but a lack of true ownership. How can we shift that culture and foster real accountability, and how to include that in training packages, conversations?
Well, that's a very good question, isn't it? That's very challenging, and I think it's a combination of I mean, all organisations are different, aren't they? So you probably might be coming at it from a different starting point. It does feel the single best thing that we did was got proper engagement from the board, from the execs, so it's using your director to influence the director of operations, director of nursing, to get the right culture from there. Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's trying to do it at every single level. I think you can. I've worked in organisations where there isn't that culture, but you can achieve that at any level. So you'll have good relationships between, some of my management accountants would have a very, very strong relationship with their budget holders, even if at a high level the relationships aren't quite so good or quite. So I think it's trying to come at it both from the bottom up and the top down. Yeah, how you put that in the training packages, I suppose it's just trying to put some context into everything, isn't it? One of the reasons we have quite a variety of things in our training. It isn't just focused on budget holders, or not just on budget training, is to try and get it in the NHS context. We sort of have a slide on how much the NHS is funded and all those sort of things. So just to try and set the whole thing in context and how the organisation and why it's important as an organisation to be financially sound. There will, if you are in a position where you're so well thought of by your ITP, that can be hugely beneficial to future investment. So I suppose it comes back to the sort of what's in it for them, what's in it for us culture. But yeah, if you've got a poorish culture or problems with that, it is quite a long-term task to get it turned around.
Yeah, I think it's also something about like you said, fostering their relationships, but it being a two-way thing, again, as you previously said, and building that relationship between the finance teams and the budget holders, so that if there are issues in the budget, so once they understand the numbers, it's then what's behind them, and then correcting them, and then any problems or if they want to justify changing their budgets, it's that listening process of how to do it and helping them take ownership of it. I think that's probably you can't put that into a training package, but it's a conversation of how we help each other Any other questions? Great. Well, thank you very much, Tim. That was an excellent presentation. I think we all really enjoyed experiencing how you role as a FACE educator, and you've really done well to promote the role, and hopefully we can recruit some more FACE educators as part of this. I think there's now a little bit of a break. We're finished about 10 minutes early, so maybe we just extend the break for 5 extra minutes. We'll give 15 minutes, and we'll start a little bit earlier at 11:15, where Sarah Brisbane from the Royal Papworth Hospital is going to be showcasing how their budget training was developed, and hopefully we'll build on the stuff that we've talked about here to then develop that ownership and making it more interactive and innovative. So we will see you in about 15 minutes. So 11:15, we'll kick back is the plan. Welcome back. I hope everybody had a good break. Apologise if there's any buzzing on that you're getting through from my speakers. There's some people doing some drilling next door. So next up, we have Sarah Brisbane from the Royal Papworth Hospital, and she'll be showcasing how the Royal Papworth budget training was developed and how it's enhanced both interest and learning outcomes. So I'm hoping Sarah's there.
Yes, hello. Morning,
Hello.
everyone. Hello
Yeah.
there.
Welcome.
Yeah,
Over
Thank
to
you
you.
very much. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for coming back from the break as well. I'm here to talk about budget holder training in the way Royal Papworth approached things, and appreciating that we've already had a lot of conversation about this already. But just we think we did something a little bit different, but hopefully this will work for you. I'm just going to try and share this now, so just bear with me 1 second. Get this going. Hopefully we'll be okay. Okay, so hoping you can see that okay. Oh, hold on, sorry. Yeah, could someone just say something just to say?
Yeah, all good.
Yep.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. It's a slight panic, isn't it? It's always the worst time when you're trying to share something. So yeah, as I say, I work for Royal Papworth Hospital. I'm currently the head of financial development there, which is a great position, and I'm privileged to be working in that. So the way we did things, I think, was a little bit different. So just to give you a bit of background on this, back in 2023, our learning and development ambassadors within the finance team, we initiated a project to review the current state of the service that we provide to not just the finance director, but to the whole organisation. So the type of training we're providing, the way in which we're providing it, and the way in which we're delivering it. And we really wanted to listen and work collaboratively with our colleagues, our non-finance colleagues, and just enable the team to provide an up-to-date, fit-for-purpose set of learning resources. So I'm probably same as other organisations. This project had been delayed slightly from pre-COVID, and obviously that subsequent period of activity recovery and survey fatigue that comes with that. So August 2023, we set out a survey to the organisation, and this included things like the interactions and communication with the finance team. So what were the ratings for the overall level of support, the timeliness of dealing with inquiries. We asked them for self-assessment of their own financial knowledge, processes, governance, that kind of thing. And we asked them what areas they would like more training in. And just bear in mind that, again, probably in common with a lot of you, we have 16 different sub-teams within our finance directorate. So everything from financial accounting, financial management, referrals treatment, BI, commissioning, clinical coding, we cover quite a lot. So this survey obviously, again, covered quite a lot of different areas. As I said earlier, we looked at how they would like it delivered, because obviously post-COVID, we've got far more opportunity to deliver now on a virtual platform. Doesn't need to be in person. And then we wanted to collaborate. So you'll see it on all of these slides as we go through. One of our Trust 3 values is collaboration, and that was really important to us, and just such an important part of this program, really, and this project, because it's all well and good us sitting in finance and saying, well, this is how we think this should be delivered, but that might not work for our non-finance colleagues. So very, very important that we actually had their input on this. And I think we had about 90 responses, which we thought was fairly good. So just moving on, the self-assessment option. So as you can see here, this is the key. We asked them, was their knowledge very good, average, or could be better? And I think it's certainly in most, if not all the cases, the response was could be better. So this is just 5 of the areas here that we asked them the question on. And as you can see, we're looking at probably half in most cases where they thought their understanding could be better. So that, I suppose, was it a shock? A little bit, but it was good that they were honest, and that's what we wanted. So the top 5 areas that came out from the options we gave them for the training, the ones in bold here, I don't know if you can quite see this, but we had understanding wider NHS financial flows, understanding accessing budget statements or financial reports, understanding responsibilities under the Trust's SFIs and scheme of delegation, writing business cases, and procurement processes. So these were kind of our top 5 and the ones that we were going to work on. And the first one we're going to work on is the budget statements. So just moving on. So the challenge, obviously we had 19 volunteers, which wasn't bad. So clinical and non-clinical areas, and obviously various levels of financial expertise. So we formed this collaborative group, and what you've got on the screen here is really our challenges and our aims. We really wanted to work with our stakeholders. We needed to make sure that everyone understood their responsibilities for financial governance. A massive one for us in the finance team as well. We wanted to free up the time of our FBPs. They were providing pretty time-consuming one-to-one budget holder training with anyone new within their service area. Obviously, that's not really doable. We have quite a small team here at Patworth. There's only 3 finance business partners plus an assistant FBP as well. It's quite hard if they've got to go around doing this all individually. And obviously that was reliant on finding convenient times as well. And we didn't want it to get pushed down the list of things to do. Consistency was a big thing as well. You know, again, if you leave it to the FBPs, they're absolutely amazing in terms of the knowledge, but in terms of consistency, it might not be exactly the same. Identifying all your budget holders sounds like the easiest one of these, and actually it's been the most challenging, but I'll come to that at the end when we look at how we've actually done against our aims here. And obviously the big thing really is to demonstrate excellence and to give confidence to our non-finance colleagues, to say that we're actually delivering to the commitments we made in the survey. It's all very well putting these surveys out, but if we don't actually do that, then you know, that's not really a good message back to our teams. So it's all going well. You know, we've got this collaborative working group going together, and we're testing a few things in various meetings with service colleagues. And then during one session, it was quite a small, I think it was only 3 people in the group. We received this challenge. Now, this is what they said. They said, this is really good, but what would be even better would be for the budget holders to be able to do the training interactively using their own budget statements. So basically, they didn't just want the theory, they wanted to actually sit there and do it with us. And hence this training session really was born. We do appreciate there's various training aids and videos from SBS who we have our budget statements through, our BI through, but it wasn't really what we needed. So really in this session, I'm going to run through the resource that we built to meet this challenge. So we call it the sandwich because it comes in 3 parts. Nothing particularly clever about that. But looking at the training resource we were creating, as well as that interactive part of it, we knew we still had to cover the important basics. We had to provide a package that delegates could go away with as a reminder of everything that they've learned, particularly those interactive pathways that they had followed and the reports that they'd accessed and found valuable. So we ended up with this kind of interactive sandwich and just kind of like a real life sandwich, really. The middle bit hopefully is the most interesting and certainly the bit that adds the real value. So we'll start at the beginning, the first layer. So this was the basics, really. What it means to be a budget holder, provided a little bit of information on that. Also everything we did in this PowerPoint, which goes out to them after, the links to our intranet pages. So we got the policy here, DM140, the SFIs, so they could click on that, have a look at that as well. We looked at their responsibilities. These were all put within the training session as well. So even basic things like how to access their financial statements, the role of the FBPs, etc. So these are all kind of the things that we went over in that initial session. And then the filling. So as I said, the filling is hopefully the tasty bit here, and I'm going to just switch to Excel because I want to give you a bit of a demonstration here. I think that maybe taking you through what we've built in person is better than trying to explain this on slides. So just bear with me 1 second while I just end that. And again, I might just need someone just to tell me whether you can actually see an Excel sheet now as opposed to the slide deck. Yeah, is that a yes?
No,
Sorry,
I can't.
No?
I can still see the slide pack.
Slide
Okay.
pack, yeah.
Right, in that case, let me just unshare and reshare. Might be the best way of doing it. So I'll do that. Okay. Hopefully you'll see the Excel now.
Yeah, all good.
Wonderful, thank you for that. So I don't know how many of you use SBS. This may or may not be something that is kind of directly relatable to you, but what I will say is this is the way we did it, and it's kind of the theory, and I believe it can be easily recreated across other systems as well. But so for some of you it may be more familiar than others. So this is our Excel sheet. All of the blue tabs here are relating to one of the sections within the SBS BI. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 effectively sheets within the BI system, which cost center summary, subjective listing, subjective overview, transactions payroll, post analysis, etc. So there are blue tabs here for each one of those. And then you'll see in a minute, I've linked. So where it says there are areas that you can click on to take you to some more information. These will link to some other, the ones in pink along here. Hopefully this will become a little bit clearer as we go. So the first tab on their view, on their budget statement view, is the cost center summary. And what they will see is this section down the left-hand side. This is kind of the basic stuff, but it's the way we start them off. Within the training pack, you'll see here we've got some definitions, and all definitions come in these kind of blue boxes. So anything that's in a blue box will be a definition or an explanation of something they are seeing on their screen. So things like the obvious thing: why do we have RGM? What's a fiscal year? And obviously I've just recreated drop downs so to show that they can go into prior years as well. So the difference between a fiscal year and a financial year, certainly in finance, when we're talking about years, we tend to talk about financial years. So it just looks a little bit different. Cost center codes and descriptions, again, you know, we explained about that, and we just put a load of cost center codes in here so that they could show how they can drop down, and if they have more than one cost center that they're responsible for, that they will see that within the drop down. And likewise, if they're not sure of their cost center code, they can always search by the cost center description as well, which we also just put over here in the explanation. We also just explained to them that they can, they'll have a drop down. So again, just recreated that drop down. That means that they can look at pay, non-pay income, or whatever they want, if that's something they want to do. So that's kind of the real basic starting point. We then got a second version of this cost center tab, and this is more as they will see it on their own screens. So again, everything in these blue boxes is some sort of explanation. Hold times, what we find is you've got 4 different hold times in here. Dead confusing for anyone who's not really aware of this. And so we've got the definitions and just obviously what a hold time equivalent is as well. We're going to have some people very, very new to this. We're going to have a really wide range of knowledge across the people who are coming to these sessions. So you can see again, all the way down, we've got these boxes that they can see here. So in terms of how we recreated this, this is actually how it looks on their screen. So for the current selection, you're underspent by or overspent by. And these D numbers, which I have no idea how they come up with the numbering system. They seem to jump all over the place, but this is a D21. And I've just made these numbers up. And I think what is quite key here is that it doesn't matter if these numbers don't make a lot of sense, because these are the training numbers. The people who are taking part in this, the participants, they will have their own laptops or their own screens in front of them with their own budget statements. So that's the very first thing we do. So just going back a step, when they come into the room, we ask them to log on to their own budget statements. And I'll be honest with you, I've been quite shocked at the difficulty that some people have had in doing that, because this is something that people should be looking at on a regular basis. And we found people to quite a high level who have really struggled to access, and that was a little bit worrying. So even just getting them past that first point. So at this point, we're working through this first page. Everyone's got this first page. We do it in person at the moment only, because I'm there to help them to find that page. So when I'm talking about something, it's looking at it from their point of view. Basic things like, you know, if there's a bold red line to the right of a variance, it indicates an overspend. And I'll be honest with you, my first few years as being a budget holder looking at this, I thought it was just something wrong with my screen, that there was this red line, but obviously there wasn't. It's an overspend. So what's lovely about this is the people who are all looking at their own screens are still interacting with each other, because there's that kind of level of, oh my goodness, how many red lines have you got, etc. And it starts getting them talking, which is really good, and learning from each other. So what we do here, anything that has a little line under it is going to be a link. So what I will do is I will talk to them about what they can click on to get more information. So for example, an annual budget. So if they click on their annual budget line, they will get a screen that looks like this. It'll bring them to D200, their annual budget profile. Again, as a budget holder myself, this is something I found incredibly useful, because it gave me, you know, obviously my budget by month, and it allowed me to set something up that I could certainly reconcile my budget a lot better on. And again, what we talked to them about is that they can look at that in summary, or if they want to look at it in year to date, then they can do that as well. One of the key things that we find with our BI system is if you press the back button, anything could happen. Basically, you might go back, or anything really could happen. So we make sure we tell them to press the return button, which again they do alongside me or whoever's presenting, and it brings us back to where we were. So without pressing that button. Again, we talk about the print or the export options here, but anything really with that underlined will bring you to something. I'm hoping I'm pressing this one. I haven't pressed this for ages. There we go. I've pressed the actuals and it's brought them to their D27 budget holder subjective balances. And again, we just talk through exactly what this means. So for pay, in terms of the whole times, again, your annual budget, your in-month, year to date. And we don't use the forecast facility in the BI system. So again, you know, when it's saying 0 down there, really not to worry. Again, hit the return button, takes it back again. So it's stuff that anyone could build in Excel, really. Likewise, pay, non-pay income, we explain how they can again click on these and it'll take them through to their pay, and they can look at that as well. So lots of stuff here. There's also a couple of charts that we have underneath as well. So again, we just explain what that is, and again that there is a drop down if they want to see a summary, or if they want to see it by subjective class, they can do that as well, which is demoed just underneath. So everything that I'm doing on the screen, they're doing on their own budget statements with me. And that's what brings up the questions. It's absolutely amazing how many questions come from, well, what does this show, or why is it doing that? And a really good question I'll come on to when we come on to the pay as well. So all of these other sections, the next two I'm going to skip over quite quickly because we will have looked at them when we looked at the actuals, because they link to some of these. But again, we'll go through them. You know, if they come to their second tab, this is what you're going to see. You're going to see this D27, which is actually what we got from clicking the link in the other sheet. But we go through all of this. Again, the red lines, we look at that together. The subjective overview, again, we do a similar thing. It's not an awful lot different from the last one. But again, we just look at it. As I said, numbers don't matter because they're looking at their own. And what we do on this one, again, we just show them there's an option on the drop down to go to cost center, which obviously is, I've just got down the bottom here, which just expands it all. So then we move on to the next one. It's quite intuitive, this, transactions. So this is obviously where they can find out a little bit more. When I first started being a budget holder, I must admit some of these categories in this report just blew my mind, really. I had no idea what they meant. So what we tried to do is all of the categories that they will see on their own statements on the BI, on the SBS, are all along the top here. And again, these blue boxes explain what they are. So things like journal sources, line descriptions. So party in this case means employer name. Really apologise to J.K. Rowling. I pinched her names. Probably shouldn't have done that, but again, it keeps that interest going in the group. The journal source and journal header. It's really interesting how many people, in fact, I would say 99% of people that we present this to, I've never heard of a journal. They don't know what a journal is. We in finance think everyone knows what a journal is. They don't. So we explain what that is, obviously, because that's quite big. So just going along to the end, this is the pay transactions here, and obviously then they get the non-pay, which similar thing with the headings of the columns are different again. It can be really messy because you've got accrual reversals and all sorts of things. So again, we talk a little bit about that, but also we give them the definitions. And we also explain that when we get to the end, if there is a link here, then they can press on that and it will take them through to an invoice. So I've literally just picked one of our invoices so that they can see what that actually does. Okay. sorry, onto transactions. They'll obviously have a lot more, so they can do that. But this again has really helped. I don't think many of the people who've been to the training sessions so far have really been aware of that. I think this is such a confusing screen, a very long screen, that they just needed that little bit of extra help on it. So again, I'll quite often get questions as we go through this one, because they'll see something, a link at the end, and they'll click it out and say, I don't know what this is for. And that is when I know that this session has worked, because it's actually making them look at what's in there, what's in their budget, what spend has been allocated against their budget. And actually some of that may be incorrect. And that's what we really need them to look at every month. So once we've done that one, we move on to the next one, which is the payroll analysis. And obviously this is the one that they love the most, I think it's fair to say. And again, we've recreated this just how it looks, apart from obviously any of the boxes in blue, which are the just the explanations. So it starts at the top, what they're changing payroll spend from previous month is. If it's gone down, it's green and a down arrow. If it's red, it's gone up with an up arrow. The most interesting session I did was in October last year, when we got to this. And of course, they're all chatting. They're all, oh, you know, mine's green, mine's red, whatever. Everyone's was red. I could feel this kind of mild panic starting to rise across the room, until we explained that actually that's when the backdated pay had come through. So everyone's was pretty much red, or everyone's was red. So it took away a little bit of that panic. But again, this one has created the most conversation in the room. Why is that person's pay higher than it was last month? That's what they need to go and find out. So it's really making them look at their numbers, which is obviously what we're trying to make them do. Again, like I said, this is exactly as they see it on the screen. They've got this D265, which is their main movements from last month to this month. They can see it by the gross cost for the year, by employee. And again, they can look month by month and see if there's any changes, which they've found quite useful. There's a few that aren't so useful. I don't think as a budget holder they're particularly useful, but we do go over them and explain what they are. And likewise, any charts, we just explain what they are and the ability to filter. The two that seem to be the most liked and the most useful are the D261 by subjective or employee. And again, we've got these two here that when we explain, if you click on that, this is what it's going to show you. So they get their monthly breakdown, including enhancements on costs, etc. over time. And that, again, is something they have found incredibly useful. So what I do when present this is explain to them that some of these tables, some of these reports are going to be more useful than others. And I think that's really important to explain, that it's not going to be the same for everyone. But all I ask is they go away with those pieces, those little nuggets of information and those new links, those new clicks and whatever, that they think, yeah, they're the ones I really need to look at. So payroll is the big one, really, that they find the most interesting. And post analysis is the last tab on their budget statements in BI. And I'll be honest with you, this is something that I probably didn't even look at as a budget holder until I did this training. Again, some of it is not overly useful, but when we come to the cost movements, that is really useful. And also when it goes down to names as well, and budgeting. And we kind of explain, for some reason, this last D267 needs something a bit different. When you press on the link and it has this kind of picture of an employee running. I don't know why, it's the only one it does it on, but again, we kind of explain that if you press on the name, this is what you then see for that particular person. And it just, again, for that drill down, this is what they're seeing. And again, we've just recreated how it looks on their own screen, and they decide, you know what, that's something that's really useful to me. and I've picked up something already that I'm going to look at, or they don't. And that's the 6 sections that we run through on the interactive part. Next slide, please. The final layer. Okay, so the final layer, so very important. Thank you, Natasha. Just keep clicking a couple of times on this would be great. So this includes the source of information, which we talk about where the numbers have actually come from. And this is something that probably we haven't spoken about before. So the fact we have a sales ledger, we have a purchase ledger, and it goes into the general ledger. We do a little bit of a joke about ledgers and Bob Cratchit and Scrooge and all the rest of it, which again kind of just breaks that up a little bit. We talk about what an accrual is and what a prepayment is and why they're important. And I actually asked them to give a couple of examples, which they're usually very good at, which is quite an interesting one. Again, see how much they've listened, but also how much they know. So that usually goes down quite well. We give them some top tips. Again, this is all in the side pack. So things like checking their invoices for accuracy, making sure they code them on time, make sure they approve them, don't just leave them in their workflow. POs, getting to grips with them and using them basically when they should be used, when they shouldn't be used. Voting, the voting button, it's not just a nice to have. When the finance business partner asks for the voting button to be used, we explain how it's important to be used for audit. And things like when to look for your budget statements. If you're going to look at it on day 2 or day 3, you're going to be very confused because it's not going to be ready. And so we explain that they need to wait till that comes out. Collaboration with our FBP as well, really, really important in terms of budget setting, annual planning, etc. So that's really important. What we also include in this final layer of our sandwich is our load of flow charts for the reports that we've demoed. So when they get back to their desks and they're thinking, oh my goodness, I can't remember anything Sarah said, we have some flow charts. So if you could just go on to the next slide, Natasha, please. Thank you. So we also have a jargon buster. So we talk about things that they might not know. So we all use abbreviations, we know that. So simple things like POD or EL or anything like that, or FOT, we put in our jargon buster and we ask them to let us know if there's any others. There's the example of the flow charts that we just spoke about. Just a reminder of those definitions. So everything that you saw in that Excel document in a blue box, they are included within this final layer of the pack that we give to them. Next slide, please, Natasha. Thank you. So as well as the abbreviations, we have a glossary as well. I mean, there are so many financial terms, we couldn't begin to recreate this. So in the pack and in the training session, we just do a couple of A's and a couple of B's, and we stick in a J for journal to just reinforce what a journal is as well. But we also have a link there, hopefully you can see it on the screen, to the HFMA glossary. So if they have terms, financial terms that they don't know, they can use that as well. We also tell them where they can find out more about finance. So Click is our internal finance reporting system. We have an area of our trust called Learn Zone, which is run by the education team. And we have e-learning modules for each of our finance sub-teams in there, and also the HFMA. And we include a link to that introductory guide to NHS finance, which was referred to earlier. And also then we obviously request feedback. So all of this information is given to the delegates when they finish the course, so that they've got something to remind them. Okay, next slide, please, Natasha. Thank you. Again, hopefully you can read this. I'm on my phone now, so I'm struggling, but these are some of the comments that we've received from those who both have been on the working group and delegates from the course. In fact, the bottom right hand corner that starts the new budget holder training, that's feedback from one of our FBPs, which obviously is really important as well, because this is part of their job that hopefully we're giving them a little bit of relief on by doing this training. I think, again, just looking at the questions asked of other presenters this morning as well, there's been a question about whether these are held virtually or in person. Now, we have toyed with virtually, as I mentioned earlier, but I think because of the number of questions were asked in the sessions, you know, so if I click on here, what does this mean? Does that really mean that that person's been paid twice as much as they did last month? I can actually, or whoever's presenting can actually go round to each of these individuals and look on their screen with them on their budget statement and answer questions, which I don't think we could do virtually. Confidentiality for a start, but it would just make things far more difficult. Doesn't mean it's not going to be reviewed as the months goes on, as we make our way through everyone. But at the moment, we're just continuing to hold them in person. Next slide, please, Natasha. So just to recap on our aims, we wanted to work with and listen to stakeholders, ensuring that everyone's understanding that their responsibilities. We feel we've achieved that with this resource. Freeing up the valuable time of the FBPs, we feel that's been achieved as well. To be able to demonstrate excellence and give confidence, we feel that's been achieved, certainly from the feedback we've had and the way the sessions have been so interactive. It's been great. No one has sat there quietly. I don't think anyone has not commented or, you know, been part of the training. The only one that we are still working on is the one that we really thought would be the easiest, was to identify all new budget holders that are coming into the organisation, or anyone within the organisation who then goes on to have budget holder responsibility. Pretty much in line with some of our system partners, we're aiming to get all of our budget holders through this training to provide our exec team with the assurance that everyone has that training and that knowledge in their financial governance responsibilities. Next slide, please, Natasha. So the potential, really, can this be replicated whether you're on SBS or whether you're on some other system? I think it can. I really do. The top and the bottom layers of the sandwich, you do all that anyway by the sound of it. It's that bit in the middle, the interactive bit, that where people are physically using their own budget statements to follow. I think it can. I think it can be replicated. As I've said before, numbers don't need to make sense. I spent hours, I'll be honest with you, right at the start thinking, why does that number not match with that one? And this one now doesn't make sense, until I actually realise they're looking at their own numbers. The numbers on my screen don't need to absolutely make sense. They just need to be there. They don't need to be totally outlandish, but they need to be there. But because they are looking at their own numbers, that doesn't need to make sense, and it takes away that real stress in trying to get it all to add up. It's really the pathways and the principles that you're looking at more. I think here as well, a message would be to you, if you do fancy giving this a go, don't give up. It may feel like you're getting nowhere at the start, but as you build that model up, you will see it all coming together. And the other tip, which I haven't put on here as well, is create a learner version of the spreadsheet for anyone who can't access on the day. We've seen today, my sharing ability has gone. Something's happened with my screen. That can happen in the training session as well. So they may not be able to access for whatever reason. So I've recreated that sheet that we just looked over, that Excel, and done a learner version, which I basically then just email anyone who's having trouble on the day. Okay, thank you, Natasha. So I just hope you found it useful today. I've certainly found the other sessions useful from everyone else. We've done things a little bit differently, but it seems to be working. If you've got any questions, happy to answer them now, or you know, if you want to email me separately, that's absolutely fine. But that's the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. I think there's I think a lot of people enjoyed your interactive work budget holder training, and I think a lot of people are keen to replicate it. So from questions, first one was, how long are your sessions?
The sessions are an hour and a half. So I usually book the room out a couple of hours. It doesn't take me too long to set up beforehand. And yeah, it's an hour and a half. So not too bad. Yeah.
And I guess the next question will be is how other organizations, and you touched on it briefly, how other organizations can replicate it, and whether people can contact you to try and get a template of some sort for them to replicate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm happy to share any of that stuff. Obviously, I've not shown you the whole PowerPoint that we use on the day. I'm very happy to use it, and if it's something you're interested in, and you use SBS the same as we do, yeah, it's ready to go. Really, just for you to adapt. But very happy to share.
Great. Any other questions for Sarah? Faisal.
Hi, just wanted to, just a very quick one. Normally what happens is that with the budget train, you know, even though we train them and stuff, you know, when they receive the budget statements, and honestly, I've been encouraging myself saying that there's a good tool within the BI that everybody should be using it. There's always an issue with the licensing and stuff like that. But putting that to one side, the question is, if Sarah's ever come across, what normally happens is we send the budget statements out, and it's on the day of the meeting. Sometimes the budget holders don't even see the statements, and then they will say, "Oh, yes, we have received it, but can you open it up, please? Can you share it?" Then you think that we are sharing this in good time, and we don't have the meetings, you know, straight away. We give them a week's time to go through them. But do you come across any of, or anybody has come across where they find the same issue, that the budget holders, they don't even read the statement until the budget meeting is actually happening?
Yeah, I mean, I can't sort of talk on behalf of the FBPs, but I am very sure that is happening. What we're hoping is giving people the confidence to know what to look at, to know what to press, to know what to click. It's really given them like a renewed interest. So, oh my goodness, you know, why, like I said earlier, why is that person been paid so much more than last month? You know, why is there so much overtime or enhancements within that? We're trying to make it attractive to them, so that when they get that email through that says your budget statement is now ready to view, they are going to view it, rather than, as you say, just ignoring it until the date of the meeting and expect the FBP to do all the work. That's what we're trying to really avoid. Does it happen? Probably, to be perfectly honest with you. I would hope that's reduced. But that's an interesting one for us to find out. It's a good question to ask. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Faisal. Debbie?
Just one thing that I've picked up when I've done my budget holder meetings. You're right, that does happen. But one thing, after doing the training with the budget holders, they've asked for their clinicians to come in on the budget meeting. And I've got to say that's really helped with the understanding of the clinicians have changed their mindsets on how they view things, because they understand it a bit better. And we always make sure that we have enough time so they've got enough time to ask questions and understand it more than what they would have done previously. And we always give them the option to contact ourselves if at a later stage they come up with questions and stuff. So I do think it does make a massive difference if you can get that buy-in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you can hook people in and get them interested, I think you're kind of 3/4 of the way there, aren't you? And then they want to know what's happening.
And then that asks them more questions and more questions, and the more they get to know it, the more other people, because what they do is they push it on to the next level down, then next level down, then pushes it to the next level. And before you know it, instead of let's come in and asking, can we do this? They've already answered their own question before it even gets to the finance person.
And that's where you want to be, isn't it? That's absolutely where you want to get to, yeah.
Thank you. And Liam?
Oh, hi. Yes, just leading on from that question, we use NEP and specifically NEP Reach, so we can actually see which budget holders have accessed their budget statements. And during the budget meetings, we ask them to open up the system in real time, and we're also on the system, but we don't insist, but we request that they open NEP Reach, and so that we can see that they're actually on the system and using the system. And of course, we have to give them training to support them in doing that. So we've monitored their access as a group of budget holders go up from 22% to around 59% at the last count. So yeah, so that we found that that's been quite helpful to request it and monitor.
Great. Julie? I think, Julie, you're on mute if you're trying to talk.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm putting my camera on. And yes, just following up from what Liam said, we at UCLH, yeah, sorry, we at UCLH, we also use the NEP Reach system, and it's quite useful because in there the information is live, and the system can go back many years because it's all at the back end. So they can click on any month, any year they want to do compare particular costs year on year. Also within the system, they can drill down to see their invoices as well. They can drill down to see their journals, what's come in. They could drill down to see any AP reports, any AR reports. It also gives them the graphs if they're visual minded. It also gives them the graph. They can actually see the hold times. They can see by cost center level, top level, however you put it, is already live on the system. And also, since we've had that system implemented at UCLH, actually project holders are very much engaged. A lot of questions coming back to us. Some of them actually use the pen and draw circles around the front pages and variances and email us back with questions as to things that they can't really get behind the system when they drill down. And so it's been quite useful. And I think possibly everybody should try and also look at that system as well, because sometimes the main drivers for each of these project holder traders, they vary depending on the specialty and what you're looking at. And sometimes generic project holder training doesn't really suit everybody. Because everybody's got different drivers within what they want to learn in the areas. And I find generic budget hood doesn't really cover everything, but you can tailor make it on the NEP to look at their specific areas, and also in collaboration with our HR partners and our activity team partners as well. So that's my take on the system that we use, which is kind of similar to what Sarah is showing, where people in the past, they wait for you to have the meeting before they actually look at the statement. And now the system is live. Once we shut down, they go straight into the NEP and they look on the budget statements immediately, and they come back with questions. So that's my take on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Leanne. I think there's clearly different ways that people can utilize the software that they're using to deliver budget holder training. But from an interactive point of view, I think what Sarah's produced is really, really good. We should try and emulate it as best as possible. We're going to move on to the FACE case studies now. So we're going to start off with Pam Core from University Hospitals of Coventry and Warwickshire, and then we're going to be talking to Lucy and Alison, and they're going to talk about some of the exciting work taking place within their organisations, and it's a bit of a spotlight on each one. So Pam, over to you.
Thank you, AK, and thanks everyone and all the speakers that have presented so far today. I think there's been, I think resonated with quite a lot of the content that we've shared already, and I've noted quite a few really good ideas as well. So it's myself and Lisa from our payroll manager that's going to be presenting to you today. We're going to be doing a bit of a double act. I'll just put my presentation into presentation mode, so hopefully you can all see this. Natasha, if you can just let me know, because I can't see the meeting delegates.
All good
now. Brilliant, that's fantastic. So thought we'd just take you through very briefly what we're doing at UHCW. It's really focused around engaging our stakeholders and how we can improve the stakeholder engagement that we have at UHCW. So just move on to the next slide. I thought I'd start off really in saying, okay, so who are our stakeholders? And I think it's really important to recognise all of the different people working in the organisation and the kind of different variety of users that we have out there in the organisation. So we're a hospital that's across 2 sites, both at Coventry and Rugby, and I thought it'd be useful just to share the kind of range of stakeholders that might have an interest in finance within the organisation. So, you know, number of finance system users, people that receive budget reports, budget holders, users that are requisitioners, authorisers, a range of different cost centres across the clinical areas, and we have 140 finance and procurement staff, of which 26 are registered on the FACE network. We also have £1 billion of annual spend, of which 60% is pay, and we pay approximately just over 12,000 people a month, with another 1,000 bank payments every week. And Lisa's joined us today just to give you a little bit of an overview about the payroll side of things, because that's one of the areas that we get a lot of kind of engagement with as well. It's always an interesting topic for most people. So the reason why I've shared this is really in the interest that we're constantly aiming to improve the reach and quality of the financial awareness to all of these different users. So training and education to both our finance staff so that they understand finance, but also across the organisation. You know, we've heard from the speakers today that we're operating in a very challenged financial environment at the moment, and so making sure that the operational colleagues, they understand finance, and also they have accountability for maintaining financial balance and finding the waste reduction and CIP schemes as well. That's always a constant challenge that we face in our everyday sort of life. And so we thought, okay, how can we improve this? Because obviously with the range of stakeholders that we have, one of the things that we found through our usual interactions with the rest of the organization, and also through our recent budget holder survey, is that we're dealing with a range and a breadth of people that have a variety of capability in their understanding of finance, their actual capacity to deal with finance, because their day job is clearly operational or clinical, and sort of finance isn't their first priority. And also you've got users that have a varying level of interest in finance as well. So there's those three aspects that we kind of have to take into consideration. So we thought, how are we going to tackle this with the aim of increasing the number of people that we train and increasing the level of engagement, and also improving the level of service that we provide to all of our stakeholders. So as part of it's kind of part of accreditation as well, really, the One NHS Finance accreditation, we thought it would be really useful to set up a stakeholder engagement group. And basically what we have is we've got this working group within finance where we've got representation from all the different areas of finance, from payroll, financial management, income, costing, and financial services, to make sure that we've got an all-round and rounded approach to the kind of information that we're giving out to the rest of the organization through budget holder training and all the different types of interactions that we have through our different roles. So just really quickly give you a very brief overview of the remit of our stakeholder engagement group, and just a few snippets in terms of what we're trying to achieve. Partly ensuring that we make our accreditation business as usual. This has got to be part of our day job, making sure that we're delivering our long-term finance strategy, having a clear view of our internal stakeholders, which I've just shared with you, and also understanding what their needs are, responding to budget holder survey. I think two of the key things that we took out of the recent budget holder survey was the need for improved training. So we've gone back and looked at how we provide the training, looking at the platforms, looking at the material, how we can improve that in terms of incentivizing feedback, so we can continuously make that better, having a certification process as well. And also the other part of the budget holder survey was to improve the budget holder meeting process and the information that we provide to the budget holders. And I really liked the presentations that we've had on the conference so far, and I've taken back a few ideas that we can implement as well back in our own organization. And I think that's the beauty of having these kind of network days where we can share best practice and also pinch with pride. So it's really wonderful to hear what the other organizations are doing. Obviously, the other sort of key areas are improving clinical engagement in our waste reduction program, encouraging sort of coming up with new ideas for productivity and value, and have got we're using a lot more in our sort of productivity process, in the sense of using model hospital more and using specialty drill downs, so that each of the specialties have got specific information relating to costing information and benchmarking information relating to their own areas. And we have Simon in our organisation that's leading on that, and he's recruiting some clinical champions. And we kind of have another program called the Medical Leadership Program, where we present on the on this program on a quarterly basis and engage and do a kind of mini sort of demystifying finance with our up and coming clinicians, our consultants as well, and that's been really, really positive. And I've, as I've already mentioned, just sharing best practice like we've done this morning, I think it's been really, really helpful. And also through One NHS Finance, through different platforms, through the Innovation Forum, and also a lot of the showcase sessions as well, I think is always really helpful to continuously improve what we're doing here at the Trust. So that's just a really quick whirlwind tour of what we're doing here, and if any of you want to learn a little bit more about any of this, and if we, happy to do a bit more detailed showcase session on any of that, if that would be of interest. So I'm going to hand over to my partner Lisa, if Lisa's available.
I am. Hello. Yes, I'm ready.
Brilliant. Right, I'm going to hand over to you. So just let me know when you want me to move the slide. So
okay, thanks, Pam.
Brilliant.
Okay, so I'm Lisa. I'm the payroll manager here at UHW. I've worked in payroll for over 35 years. I've worked both in-house and I've been an outsourced payroll department. As Pam mentioned, payroll is the biggest ongoing spend in most trusts, so your payroll departments do have a duty to protect the budgets. I always make sure we train any new payroll officers to challenge any requests that come in that don't adhere to any terms and conditions. And because as an in-house payroll, we've got a vested interest in ensuring quality and supporting and maintaining those budgets that have been set by the finance teams. I kind of straddle both camps. I feel like I've got a foot in finance and a foot in HR, although at UHW, I do actually sit under the HR hierarchy. And just in simple terms, HR know the people, finance know the numbers, but I need to ensure that we pay everybody accurately, legally, and on time. So we make sure in terms of HR, we are adhering to all the terms and conditions and calculating maternity pay, etc. correctly. For finance, we're aware of cost coding. Most electronic systems now are set up to load the cost codes into ESR, but any fallouts we get from that or anything manual and any ad hoc, the team in payroll are trained to make sure we input that cost code at source as well, just to aid the reconciliations for the finance teams. We also flag any historic claiming and late leavers to our finance team so that finance managers can engage with their particular managers on why that's happening. I also hold a payroll slot on our financial budget training. It's usually been on Teams of late. We've just done a face-to-face one in the lecture theatre, which personally I thought was a lot better. I had a lot more engagement, a lot more questions. I sort of told all the managers there present, please don't struggle. I'm happy to take a phone call. I'd rather you get it right first time and check something if you're not quite sure of a process. And I can say I have seen an increase in quick phone calls or emails asking me questions about payroll related paperwork. So we help and support managers on that training session. We'll point them to pro rata annual leave calculator to help them sort out whether someone's leaving with over or undertaken annual leave, which actually does the math for them. We tell them that their new starter will be issued with a unique assignment number when we hire them, and we tell them the difference between this and a shared position number. And we just really encourage managers to constantly check their budget reports for accuracy and to call payroll immediately if they find any anomalies, as we can recall salaries right up to a day before payday, which is quite useful for them to know. Next slide, please, Pam. So this is when someone exits the trust. We're identifying the cause of overpayments, which obviously is a big impact on budgets. The largest cause of overpayments are created by late leavers or leavers leaving with overtaken annual leave that we are asked to recover. And obviously they are the hardest to get the money back, as we have to pass this to our credit control department because we've got no salary to recover that overpayment from. Non-payment of invoices. So if it goes to credit control and that ex-employee still doesn't pay that invoice, it goes out to external debt collectors and possibly court. So that's all added costs onto the actual money that we've already lost. We report all overpayment data to Trust Board every month, so that HR can target managers who might require additional support or further training. Personally, I've asked the team to alert me to any late leaver that comes in, so I can actively engage with the manager to ask them why they've sent that termination in, then haven't sent it in timely. We encourage managers to always send terminations in at the point that notice is given. That would ensure that we'd never get a late termination. And then the next biggest cause of overpayments there is late change forms, which obviously is also impacting budgets. Sometimes staff are underpaid, but mostly overpaid if they forgot to tell us things. With the current staff, we engage directly with them now to recover that money. If the overpayment is within 4% of their base salary, we let the retro pay recover that immediately. Obviously, we will email them and let them know. If it's more than 4%, we send a letter to tell them we're going to give them 1 calendar month's notice, and we'll start recovery that straight away. The recovery doesn't normally exceed in the period in which the overpayment occurred. So if they've had a 4-month overpayment, we'll recover it over 4 months, unless the employee engages with us and cites some financial difficulty, and then we'll revisit that recovery. Other reasons for overpayments, we are becoming increasingly aware of incorrect sickness recording. Managers are breaking sickness to allow for unpaid pay, so they might not have received any notes, or they are allowing someone might say, I'm in nil pay, can I use some of my annual leave? So the manager's thinking, well, yeah, that'll get rid of that annual leave. So they're kind of breaking sickness on ESR to pop in annual leave or no notes, no pay. And they actually probably got very good intentions to protect their budgets, but actually closing and opening a sickness recalibrates the sickness and gives somebody a whole new entitlement to sickness. So that does cause overpayments. So we're trying to get a handle on that now, and I've started a group on that. I'll talk about that in a moment. Next slide, please. Are we on the next slide? I think you've jumped one. We're on recovering the money. Might have to go back one. Pam, was it on?
I think this one's the next one.
Yeah, recovering the money, yeah. So obviously, if the employee is still employed, we can almost guarantee recovering that overpayment back into trust account and budgets. As stated, we do start recovery promptly, but should the staff member leave the trust prior to full recovery, we collect any outstanding monies from final pay slips. With late terminations, we immediately send a letter off informing what the line managers told us, so the leaving date and the annual leave. That gives the employee time to check the information and highlight any discrepancies before we actually go to invoice, because grossing down to net to issue an invoice does take time, and we were finding that once our credit control department were issuing those invoices, we were getting a lot of queries about, I don't owe that much, I was due some annual leave, etc. So yeah, we send that initial letter out now, and then we'll do the invoice as per the information. If it does go off to credit control, sometimes we still do get challenges, and we'll support our credit control department by liaising with managers, checking the information's right, confirming the invoice is correct, or start rework, issue credit note, etc. all with the aim to recover trust revenue as soon as possible. Thanks, Pam. Next slide. Okay, so supporting the actual waste reduction and educating. As soon as payslips are available, payroll phones to view, which we let people view a day before payday. Payroll phones ring off the hook and all the emails start. So we hold a payroll clinic every Monday following payday. We've kept it to the Monday after payday just purely for ease, so that everyone's aware and you're not always constantly after issuing dates of the clinic, and we pre-book the room. We get a good attendance from that. Employees want to talk through face-to-face their pay slips and check it's right, because we encourage them to make sure their own pay slips are right as well. But also we get managers in who might want to come in and talk through processes and check things out with us. I regularly send mail shots out to all the budget holders on the authorised signatory list about it might be reminder that the deadline's coming up to make sure you get all your terminations, maternity applications, etc. into payroll. But I try and mix up the mails a bit so that they don't just think, oh, it's another reminder mail about a deadline. I'll try and issue reminders about don't forget to keep your sickness open until somebody physically returns from sickness to make sure that data is correct, etc. So, and then we wish that all staff would be on rosters, because that's a visual show of who is on your budget. But unfortunately, all of our staff aren't on rosters yet. But a large proportion of them are. We've got all nurses and AHPs on rosters. So an added process that I've put in is to get the roster to extract their notes, if you like. So a manager might put on maternity leave, or left the department, or left the organisation. So I'm asking for that feed from rosters as well, so that I can double check my end that manager has sent in the termination or the maternity application form. And we are picking up quite a few. We're stopping some overpayments that way, because we put it all on the roster and thought, oh, I've notified everybody, but actually we needed that application form for the maternity with the MAP B1, etc. So we're picking up things that way as well. And then with the sickness, which I've sort of alluded to earlier, it's very sensitive on ESR. So basically, if somebody goes off sick today on the 15th of September, it goes back to the 15th of September 2024 and looks at all the absence you've had in that year and deducts it from your starting balance of service from today. So although a full month's sickness entitlement is 6 months full pay, 6 months half pay, if you've had 6 months full pay in the rolling year, you'll go straight into half pay today if you go off sick. So that's why it's really important to just keep that absence open, because every time they close an absence, it opens and goes back another rolling year. And I'm not sure everyone's aware of sickness. So we're trying to raise awareness of that. I've established a stakeholder task force group, and we are in the process of writing some SOPs and making sure all of our managers' guidance is correct on that. We've found people opening and closing absences in line with sick notes. So they've gone off sick today and they've handed in a note for a week. So they are closing it in a week's time. So I've started to look at that report and engage with managers and saying, why have you put this person, why have you ended their sickness in the future? You can't know that they're physically going to return on that day. I'm also working with our workforce information team to try and see if they can create a report that easily shows people that are opening and closing absences in line with weekends or no notes that we mentioned earlier, because all of this is recalibrating entitlements to sick incorrectly. So we're probably wasting a lot of money like that. And then also with the work-related sickness, I'm not sure if you were all aware, but with a work-related sickness, it doesn't look back into the rolling year. It will literally give you a whole fresh entitlement, quite rightly, because if you've gone off with a work-related sickness, you shouldn't be penalised for the sickness you've had before. You've been injured at work, so you get a full entitlement from your start date. You also get an average of your enhancements. So somebody that works Saturdays and nights regularly might have another £800 a month in enhancements. As soon as a manager ticks work-related sick, all of that is paid. So we've now started to sort of look into who are work-related sick, and we've spotted some that's sort of a gastro or migraine. I mean, they might have gone to their manager and said, I've got a headache, it's because of work. But as soon as that manager ticks work-related, they're getting overpaid. So I've approached IBM, and they've worked with me, and they've written built an alert process. So anybody that ticks that work-related sick, we get alerted. I'm just working with our WIT team to put that into our own ESR portal. And then we've got to decide on who needs that alert. So I'm thinking it'll probably be someone in HR, someone, myself in payroll, etc., so that we can correct that straight away and stop any overpayments. So if there's any of you out there that are interested in looking at that, or I would encourage you to contact your payroll team and ask them to raise an SR, or contact their NHS ESR functional account manager and mention the build that they've done for UHCW, because that'll be really helpful, I think, in saving money as well. So that's about it from me. So hopefully you can see, although I sit under the HR hierarchy, I'm very much think of the numbers and support waste and reduction and trying to stop money walking out the door, with education and supporting financial training and designing some sort of proactive processes to identify those hidden overpayments, those that don't visibly appear as excess but are quietly costing us money all the same. And that's it from me. And Pam, are there any questions?
And hold on. Thank you very much, Pam. And it's Leanne.
Sorry, I raised my hand in error. I was trying to thank you both.
Thank you.
Okay, great. We're gonna then, any other questions? We're gonna move on to Lucy and Alison now, who are going to give their case study, if that's all right.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Pam. That was really good, really informative.
Hi, you okay? I'll share my screen 1 second. Is that coming up for you now?
Yes, it is. Thank you. Over to you.
Brilliant. Right, so hi everyone. I'm Alison Bailey. I'm the Finance Business Partner for Transformational Finance at LSCFT, that's Lancashire and South Cumbria Foundation Trust. And I'm joined today by my colleague Lucy Matthews, who's our corporate accountant. We just wanted to take a few minutes to share with you how we're trying to work to uphold a high quality finance service for both our clinical and corporate colleagues. Because as many of you know, the way finance teams operate has changed significantly since the pandemic, with most of us now working remotely between 60 to 80% of the time. And we've noticed that the opportunities for like the day-to-day interaction had reduced, so that like new starters weren't getting the same chance to build relationships, and the natural sort of cohesion that comes from being in the office together was starting to fade. So we recognised that if we didn't actively strengthen the sense of the connection within our team, it could impact in the quality of the service that we're providing to our clinical and corporate colleagues. And at the time when the NHS is under increasing pressure to deliver a balanced budget, it's easy for us to solely focus on the numbers. But we know like the softer elements like communication, teamwork and wellbeing are just as vital. And if these aren't prioritised, then we'll directly affect how we support our colleagues across the organisation. So when we started to look at how we might improve this, we realised it was often the same people stepping up to support the team with the softer tasks, things like organising catch-ups, training new starters, or helping with internal communications. So we've been working hard on ways to get everybody involved, making it a shared responsibility and helping to build a more inclusive and connected finance department. Up to the next slide. So yeah, on the following slides, we're going to talk through some of the things that we've done to help with this and some of the things that we've achieved along the way. And it might be that you've already done some or all of it, but we just thought by sharing what we've done and learned, at least some of you might benefit from it, and we can begin to share what works well for you, and also you could help us improve on our service as well through sharing with each other. So we'll share how we organise our department into special interest groups, our accreditation journey so far, some of our continuous improvement schemes, and we'll also touch on some of the ways that we interact as a whole department to try and keep in touch with everybody. So we have set up what we call our special interest group structure. All members of the department are part of one of the groups and they cover areas described on the slide. So I'll run through the systems and governance group, health and wellbeing and the communications group. And then I'll hand over to Lucy, who'll go through the skills development, equality, diversion and inclusion and value makers. And then for continuous improvement, I've got a slide further on that I'll go into more detail then. So each of our 6 groups has its own SIG lead and either 1 or 2 deputies, and they tend to meet on a monthly basis. The systems and governance SIG was established to assist the department in updating and disseminating the financial assurance framework, and they help out with any governance and data issues. It also helps advising around areas like finance quality standards, PDR compliance, counter fraud, sort of general business continuity, as well as any other activities that support sort of risk management systems, governance and compliance within the department. And some of their achievements have included they did a shared online reconciliation system with the finance, and we shared it with the Finance Innovation Forum, which they got published, and it was to improve the financial management and governance around reconciliations, and it saves staff and management lots of time when they're trying to locate, review and approve the reconciliations. And the Systems and Governance Group presented this to the Northwest Group, where colleagues from other NHS bodies asked questions and showed a real interest in how they could apply the approach in their organisations. And another of our SIGs is a health and wellbeing SIG. It advocates for our staff and the well-being, and the results are sort of borne out in our staff survey, where improvements were shown across all themes and resulted in exceeding the trust's average, which we're quite proud of. We do also do sort of a monthly anonymous department poll that is run for the staff, and it's to let them show what they're feeling about the support they might need. And we've also designated a quiet space in the office where people can take time out of from the desks and hold wellbeing sessions, or even just take some time out to do some reading or some jigsaws. And one of the SIG lead for health and wellbeing is set up a monthly menopause forum, which has been opened up to the whole department, which has received really good feedback from staff, and it's been seen as a trailblazer to promote the rollout of the forum across the trust. I am personally part of the communication SIG. Our main purpose is to disseminate updates and key pieces of information for the finance department and across our department. And we're also responsible for producing and sharing our bi-monthly staff newsletter that we call the finance team talk. And we include things like staff shout outs, a summary of the finance position, things like where people can go on some walks that they might want to go on. Depending on what time of year it is, we might have something seasonal in there, a quiz, we might have some jokes thrown in. And RSIG is also responsible for supporting and submitting nominations for any appropriate awards that come up. We're very proud that we won the HFMA Northwest Finance Team of the Year in 2024, and our very own Lucy, who's going to be speaking with you, was shortlisted for the Brian McNaught Award for all her contributions towards staff development. And so we are also responsible for reviewing and updating what's required for the department's accreditation. So that's the first 3 SIGs. I'll hand over to Lucy to go through the others for you.
Hi everyone. So the next SIG I wanted to talk about was our skills development SIG. So this is where we cover all things skills development. So we've split this group into 3 subgroups covering internal activities, external, and students and new starters. So the sort of things that we would cover in these groups may include our internal lunch and learn programme, budget holder training, new starter induction packs, appraisal, CPD. This is also where we pick up anything sort of 1NHS finance related. So for example, the competency framework and making sure that's embedded in our department and our appraisals, and also the rollout of the talent management programme. We find that ensuring skills development is maintained and upheld, it kind of allows us to maintain a better service for our non-finance colleagues as well. So we also do our budget holder support pack as well as developing our budget holder training. Me and Ali recently delivered a 1NHS Finance showcase session on our budget holder training, which we call Making Finance Fun. So you can actually view that if you were interested on the 1NHS Finance YouTube channel. So that's a little bit about the skills development SIG, which is the one I sit in, but I also chair the ED&I group as well. So this is a group which covers all equality, diversity and inclusion. So we meet on a bi-monthly basis roughly, and we celebrate and promote ED&I within the department. So we regularly share a newsletter within our finance department team talk, or we host events. These events, some kind of the ones that we've had this year, include our annual ED lunch. We also held an ED&I themed action week where we had different activities going on, which also included a lunch and learn on neurodiversity. So I think by promoting equality, diversity and inclusion, it kind of allows our department to be a more kind of diverse and inclusive space to work, and hopefully ensure that we can communicate with our non-finance colleagues in a better way, and with people from all different backgrounds as well. So moving on to value makers, we do have a value maker group. Again, they meet on a bi-monthly basis. It is a smaller group, and as part of this group, that's where we encourage use of best practice and sharing any learning as well. So we help to find solutions to any problems that the department might have. So someone might bring it to a value maker and say, oh, I'd really like to find a better way to do this. And then us as value makers will explore different options for finding a solution to that. And that might include kind of using 1NHS Finance, looking at showcase sessions that exist, but also networking with people from other organisations as well. We also encourage staff to attend any showcase sessions that they might be interested in. When they attend these sessions, we also encourage them to feedback through the group, but we also might feedback through our department team talk as well. So that's pretty much an overview of our special interest groups. If you want to go into the next slide, Ali. We also just wanted to touch a little bit on our accreditation journey. So I think being set up in the way that we are really did allow us to kind of keep progressing quite well with our accreditation. So within 12 months, we did progress through both our level 1 and level 2 within a year of each other. We had excellent feedback from our assessors as well, who are supporting us to progress to level 3 in the next 12 months. This is a process that would usually take 3 years, so we are really proud of this. And we do think the way we're structured allowed us to kind of move through this process quite quickly. In previous years, it was kind of left to a few people to sort of pull everything together, but within the SIG structure, we've actually allocated every single accreditation metric to a different group. So it's everybody's responsibility, and it's become much less laborious task for us as well. At the request of our accreditation assessors, we were asked to share our supporting video at the Northwest Finance Skills Development Network to show the good practice and excellent work our SIG teams are doing. We've then gone on to support individual trusts with their accreditation journey on the back of this as well. I think also being accredited, it allows us to maintain our reputation in the organisation. And as part of the accreditation process, you do need to have clinical staff testimonials to support. So the fact that we are able to maintain those positive relationships with non-finance staff in the organisation also allowed us to achieve our level 1 and level 2 accreditation in quick succession. So that's it on accreditation.
Yeah, so I'll just touch on our continuous improvement journey now. I think we can all say that we're guilty of doing the same things and that we've always done, and often it feels like we don't have enough time or headspace to improve our processes. But we also know that if we did create the time, we'd do ourselves a favour and save ourselves time and effort in the future. So what we decided to do was to give the whole department a dedicated 2 hours per week to enable staff to work on any agreed outputs from our SIG related work streams, as well as any new continuous improved projects that we had. So this is in everybody's diaries, 2 till 4 on a Friday, which seems to work best for most people, but it can be done at a different time. It's just, we thought that if we all did it at the same time, the majority of us, it should be less distractions from the business as usual stuff from each other. So some of the examples of improvements that have been made as a direct result of this, having this dedicated time, we have improved our banking agency reasons reporting, which has led to improved workforce data, and it's enabled us to monitor the impact of the decisions our managers are making. We've created establishment reports developed in Power BI that are more user-friendly and interactive for our clinical and corporate colleagues. And we've also improved our finance reports, so ensure that they are consistent, and they've removed as much of their manual intervention as possible, which has helped save a lot of time and ultimately results in more time being spent with supporting our budget holders. We've also improved our contracts register. It's now held in a centralised location where it can be easily accessible and with improved reporting. There's been numerous of other improvements as well since allowing the dedicated time out. People's diaries and staff have really seen the benefit of it, and it saved time and we've got more efficient processes out of it as well. Thank you. Let's move on to the next slide, Lucy.
So this was just something quick that we also wanted to include and tell you about. So this is our activity group. So we're very aware that now we work from home a lot more and we work within our teams. There's a lot less interaction between colleagues, and sometimes you might not see a colleague for quite some time if their office day is different to yours. So what we implemented with the activity groups, and they change on a 12-monthly basis. Every single month there'll be a activity challenge, so it might just be a quick quiz on Teams or something like that, where each activity team has the opportunity to collect points, and at the end of the year there'll be a winner. We just think this kind of helps to keep morale up in the department and allow us to connect with different people, and also it's just a little bit of fun as well, and people seem to enjoy it. So that was just something else that we wanted to tell you about.
Yeah, so one of the other ways that we try and keep a more cohesive department is to have what we call departmental huddles. This is where the whole department is invited. We usually have about 2 each year. One's usually on Teams, and at least we try and get one of them in the office face to face. We'll tend to start with a strategic update from the CFO or the Deputy Chief Finance Officer to ensure everyone's clear on what the latest messages are from the system. And then we'll usually have updates from each of our SIG leads on what they've achieved and what's coming up next on their agendas. Then we'll spend some time usually in groups answering questions that usually help the department improve collectively and address any issues that arise. and we usually end on celebrating any successes, be it exams or any awards that have been won, or even personal milestones such as like marriages, babies and birthdays. We'll also have away days once a year. Here's just a few pictures from different things that we've been doing. We have ours, most recently we have it held at Vernon's Cricket Club in Penwitham, as we're lucky enough to have free access due to one of our staff who's got links there. We always start it with a nice icebreaker. If the weather's nice, we'll go outside and we'll split into groups and we'll do some rotating round and play different games like Bulls, Jenga, Large Connect 4, and we'll even like earn points for our activity teams. We'll have a strategic update on the day as we do at the huddles, but we'll also invite clinical speakers to come and talk to us about their services so that we can gain more of an insight into the services that we support. For our health and wellbeing section of the agenda, once we had Home Safari come, who brought their therapy animals in for us to pet, so that was quite nice. We also do an activity on the day in groups. It gets quite competitive. We do things like making hats or making outfits out of recyclables, and then usually at the end we have to get one of the people in the group to wear it and go down the runway, and then we promote it and see who can win. We've actually got one coming up this Friday, funnily enough. Friday being strategically chosen because there's a bar there, and we stay behind at the end, have a little bit of a social gathering for those who wish to. So we do like a quiz. We try and in Hull, we try and make the day as enjoyable as possible. And we'll be ordering pizza in for lunch this week as well. So that's just a bit of an insight into how we try and keep our department cohesive and together, and so that we're running a better department that hopefully supports our clinical and corporate colleagues better. So it's just, if you've got anybody got any questions? I know you're all hungry probably.
Thank you, Alison, Lucy. Any questions? There's one earlier in the chat from Ryan. Do you find 7 groups is right? We're looking at going from 7 to less. They're all reporting feedback regular to wider team.
I don't mind jumping in there, Ali. So with our SIGs, we just have the 4. So we have comms, health and wellbeing, skills development, and systems and governance. The value makers, ED&I, continuous improvement, they're more kind of subgroups. So maybe would meet on a less frequent basis, and it's more kind of an option if you wanted to be part of them, if that was something of interest to you. But I think 4 feels about right for the size of our department as main groups. We did merge 2 at one point. But the other groups are more subgroups. So yeah, I think 7 sounds like a lot, but it's actually really 4 plus 3. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. I'm sure people will be in touch with you to talk about how you can help them with their various bits of accreditation. Just looking at any other questions. I think that's a question still for Lisa, but I'll leave that in the chat. Any other questions for Alison and Lucy? No. I'm sure any of our speakers will be, you can happily contact them by email if you want any further information. As we are running a bit over time, I'm going to be very brief and say, well, thank you to all our speakers for an amazing programme of information, very informative, different ways of delivering education, different ways of using and innovating, some pointers to where you can find more information and some contacts to develop. Some very quick housekeeping, so that you get a CPD form that Natasha will drop in the chat, and you won't get your CPD certificate until you get that form. Slides will be circulated after the event, and there'll be also some demystifying stuff as well. Is that all right? any last minute questions, let us know. I'll be on chat for another couple of minutes, and then, but otherwise, enjoy your afternoon.